Public session titled Future Proofing Health Systems. Discussions were held on how policies, practices and partnerships can be adapted and scaled up in health systems globally. The Chief Minister spoke about how steps have been taken to reduce mortality rate in his state.
Conducted almost 44 rounds of house-to-house survey. We had a robust system in place with the village secretariat at every village. A volunteer system for every 50 houses. We had 42,000 ASHA workers also. So that was one of the primary reasons as to why we could cut the mortality rate. Our state's mortality rate was the lowest in the country, 0.63%.
A man who tried to scale the wall of the Srinivasa Sagar Dam in Chikballapur fell 30 feet to the ground. A case has now been registered against him, so the several instructions are already being issued by local administration to not climb the wall. In Karnataka, Hindu Jagrati Vedike activists held protests in front of the Deputy Commissioner's office demanding that Hindu Somaling temple at Bamani Fort in Kalburgi be restored. Union Minister for Minority Affairs Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi has said that Hajj 2022 is going to start and the first flight will depart on the 6th or 7th of June for the Hajj pilgrimage. He added that a strong network has been put in place to make the pilgrimage successful, accessible and affordable. Indian Navy's largest troop carrier INS Jalashwa carried out joint amphibious drills in the Gulf of Kutch off the coast of Gujarat involving the Air Force and Army. Navy officials said the deployment of INS Jalashwa exemplifies its cross-coast deployment philosophy. The death toll because of Assam floods has risen to 24, with nearly 7.19 lakh people affected. The centre has sanctioned 180 crore rupees for the restoration of the railway network that has been worst hit by flood and landslides in the Hassau district. 6 people died, 3 were gravely injured in a car accident in Maharashtra's Pandharpur. The injured were moved to a nearby hospital. 2 local hybrid terrorists of the proscribed terror outfit Lashkar-e-Toiba were arrested in Srinagar. Incriminating materials, weapons and ammunition including 15 pistols and 30 magazines were also seized. Security forces arrested 3 hybrid terrorists of Lashkar from Baramulla. They were involved in the killing of the Goshbuk Sarpanch Manzoor Ahmad Bangru during Ramzan. A huge cache of arms and ammunition was recovered. Former Punjab Congress President Navjot Singh Sidhu, who is undergoing rigorous imprisonment for a year in Patiala Central Jail, was taken to hospital today for a check-up. He's filed an application before court seeking permission for a special diet. Union Home Minister Amit Shah, along with his wife Sonal Shah, visited the Pradhan Mantri Sangrahalaya in New Delhi. Not to forget that it was inaugurated by the Prime Minister in April this year as a tribute to all the PMs that India has had. That's it then from me. I'll see you next at 10 on the Newshour agenda. For now, it's over to Rahul Shiv Shankar with India Up Front.
Thanks indeed, Padmaja. Yes, the big story tonight on India Up Front is really, viewers, a national talking point. Are madrasas stopping meritorious Muslim children from becoming doctors and engineers? Is an education devoid of science and math holding them back from a bright future? Is it a violation of the children's right to deprive them of modern education? As per the Chief Minister of Assam, it is. Himanta Biswa Sarma, never one to shy away from a controversy, contends that the word madrasa should cease to exist. For him, this term stands for depriving children of their right to choose their future by pushing them into the dark ages. Listen in to Himanta Biswa Sarma as he expounds on why the word madrasa must not even exist in the Indian educational lexicon.
भाई साहब ये मद्रासा शब्द ही विलुप्त हो जाना चाहिए। जब तक ये मद्रासा दिमाग में घूमते रहेगा तब तक बच्चा कभी डॉक्टर इंजीनियर नहीं बन सकता है। अगर बच्चा को आप स्कूल में जाने का समय आप पूछ लेता है कि बेटा तुम मद्रासा जा रहा है, तुम जुनाब बनेगा, इस रास्ते से तुम डॉक्टर नहीं बनेगा, तो कोई बच्चा मद्रासा नहीं जाएगा। मद्रासा में तो दाखिल किया जाता है वायलेटिंग ह्यूमन राइट्स, इसलिए वो रास्ता बंद हो जाता है। तो आप जरूर कुरान पढ़ाइए, उसमें कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, लेकिन सबसे ज्यादा पढ़ाइए साइंस, मैथ्स, बायोलॉजी, बोटानी, जियोलॉजी। तो इसीलिए मद्रासा सब विलुप्त हो जाना चाहिए, नॉर्मल एजुकेशन होना चाहिए, और घर में आप खूब आपका धर्म पोथी पढ़ाइए, पूरा 2 to 3 घंटा धर्म पोथी पढ़ाइए, लेकिन स्कूल में ऐसा ही शिक्षा दीजिए जो शिक्षा से आपका बेटा डॉक्टर और इंजीनियर बन सकता है, प्रोफेसर बन सकता है, साइंटिस्ट बन सकता है। जो आप बोल रहे हैं मुसलमान लोग कुरान कंठस्थ कर रहा है, तो इसलिए उनमें बहुत ज्यादा मेरिट होता है। ये सारा मुसलमान भाई हिंदू था, कोई ऐसे मुसलमान ये धरती में नहीं आया, भारत का धरती में सब हिंदू ही था।
Himanta's party, the Bharatiya Janata Party, has wholly endorsed him. BJP says the choice is now very simple. And let's look at that 3 window. India needs more Nikhat Zareens, not a place that turns out hate preachers like Zakir Naik. That's what the Bharatiya Janata Party has said when a large number of opposition parties accused Himanta Biswa Sarma of trying to target Muslims, belittle them, their children, and of course, spout some sort of Islamophobia. Listen in, viewers.
You have the practitioners of vote bank politics and cynical Islamophobia lobby that wants Muslims to be trapped forever in the prism of madrasas and identity. They want more Zakir Naiks, whereas the country needs more Nikhat Zareens, and that is what Mr. Himanta Biswa Sarma is advocating for.
And look at this little kid who is hardly 10 years talking about death to other communities. How does it happen? I think it's simple. Radicalization in the madrasas where these kids are mandatorily sent, and of course from there to their houses, radicalization.
मदरसों के में जो एक ब्रीडिंग ग्राउंड है, यहाँ पर जो है कम्युनलिज्म पढ़ाया जाता है, यहाँ पर दूसरे धर्मों को नीचे दिखाने की बात जो होती है।
Now here are some hard facts, and on this show I always present these hard facts for you viewers so that you can get closer to the truth, you can cut through the spin, the rhetoric. These hard facts support the argument for doing away with madrasas entirely. This is an NCPCR report that I am quoting out of, 2021 NCPCR report, viewers. What does it say? An increasing reliance on religious scriptures in madrasas. The strategy to dictate child's learning atmosphere is also being embarked upon. Students deprived of facilities and entitlements. Books without photographs hurts quality pedagogy. It goes on, viewers. Parda, same-sex teacher limitation prevents diverse teaching. Students deprived of co-educational classes. This is very important, viewers. Also, the RT Act for these children becomes a depriving tool. So it's going in closer to the elements of the RT Act, which have, of course, been now brought in, viewers, to modernize education across board for all children, cutting across castes and creeds. Results in discrimination in accessing fundamental rights. And let me also give you some statistics. Now, these are referenced from the Sachar Commission report, which was once put out. And you can make out the disparity between the learning abilities of Muslim children and, of course, those that are going to normal schools. Let's play those out for you, and they're coming up on your screens. Why oppose madrasa reform is the big line on top. Well, because Muslims' literacy rate is less than the national average by as much as almost 5%, viewers. This is according to 2011 census. Children aged between 6 and 14 who've never attended formal school overall is 4.5%, but in Muslims it's 8.7%. Higher education enrollment overall, look at the numbers, almost half of the national average. So 19% of all that graduate from school pursue higher education, but only 11% in Muslims. So clearly a large number of those students are coming out of madrasas and they are not capable of scaling up to the requirements. So these are some very practical issues that need to be contended with. And of course, viewers, many madrasas have been reformed by different governments, but somehow this has been bogged down in conversations surrounding communalism. That anyone who talks about madrasa reform, scrapping madrasas, etc., as being communal, is actually against Muslim interests. Let's open this up and let's ask some basic questions. Let me first begin with former Chancellor of MANUU, Firoz Bhakt Ahmed. Mr. Ahmed, straightforward question to you. Do you agree with what Mr. Himanta Biswa Sarma is saying in principle? He says, read and learn the Quran at home, no problem, study it for 3 hours, 4 hours, but go to formal schools where modern education is imparted. What do you say?
All right, Mr. Shiv Shankar, I hope I am audible to you.
Yes, sir. Very clearly.
All right. All right. Thank you so much. You know, I believe, yesterday I heard Mr. Himanta Biswa Sarma. It was a function to celebrate 75 years of Panjanya and organizer, where he said, where he categorically said, in fact, he quoted the vision and mission of our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi. You know what he said? What he meant was, I want to see in each and every hand of a Muslim, in one hand the Holy Quran, in the other computer. This is what he repeated in other words. And I was present there, and he is a person who is well-meaning, who wants to bring the Muslim community into the mainstream of education, something which the Muslim community is badly lacking. And it is because of, people like, Owaisi and company, who just have been using these Muslims as their vote banks. Maybe it is Congress, it is the left front, or maybe other opposition parties. They have always never bothered about the education of Muslims. And I with all my heart and soul, I am saying not only the Muslims of Assam, but the Muslims of India and the entire world should strengthen the hands of Himanta Biswa Sarma, who is trying to create this vision and mission of education among Muslims. And lastly, last 5 seconds, Mr. Shiv Shankar, I would also request the government to, Mr. Himanta Biswa said that he wants to obliterate the word madrasa. Let him not say that. Let him say that I want to modernize madrasas, or I want to give the name as modern madrasa. Slowly and gradually, the name can be obliterated, because Muslim community will object to that, and we do not want that this good work which he wants to begin should be nipped in the bud. So let him begin with the modernization of madrasas. One interesting thing last time, when I told the madrasa students that you open your fast by khajur, by date, and date contains calcium, they were really very enthusiastic about it. So madrasa students who can learn a thick book like Holy Quran by heart, 1000 pages and more, this talent should be tapped for a progressive reason, for promoting patriotism. And I also, lastly, I would also add that like what is done in UP madrasas, they should begin with national anthem. In the same way, I request Mr. Sarma, he should also begin the madrasas with the opening of Jana Gana Man. I believe, it is up to him.
Well, this is very interesting. And let me also tell you, Mr. Bhakt, while you say that there should be a gradual sort of move towards calling them modern madrasas and then go on to obliterate the name madrasa altogether, the Assam government will also be shutting down Sanskrit tolls, viewers. And this is, or Sanskrit schools. So there is no discrimination in this policy. Yet, when you read the reactions that are coming from the Congress party, other elements of the polity with regards to the left, the PDP, they're saying that this is an RSS agenda destroying Muslim culture and religion, forgetting that Himanta Biswa Sarma is actually a long-standing congressman who joined the BJP. Udit Raj said these are bids to divide Hindus and Muslims. Rahman Khan of the Congress says there's nothing wrong.
Positive which is done by this government, they say RSS agenda, BHP agenda.
So let me bring in Danish Qureshi on this point. You heard Mr. Bhakt Ahmed. What is the problem, Mr. Danish Qureshi, if madrasas are either modernized or entirely, like Sanskrit schools are being shut down in Assam, shut down? What's the big deal? What's the problem? Learn the Quran at home.
Rahul, I want to say that I think there is nothing to do with madrasa. The primary situation of the country is after the lockdown. Number of students have dropped out from the schools due to lack of they were not in condition to pay the school fees. Each and every city, each and every town, each and every village is not left against this panic. Government is not working on that. If we talk about Gujarat, more than 60% families are suffering. Those who had not paid yet the total fees from the day of lockdown till the last situation. Now, instead of focusing on them, that is the main problem, that the mainstream education system has been disturbed due to this lockdown era. Problem of the solution should be done by the state and the federal government. Rather than that, they are talking about the modernization of madrasa. Go and do the modernization of the madrasa, no problem. But the drop ratio due to the pay of fees, which has been increased after the lockdown, what will be the solution of that?
Anish Qureshi, this would affect all students.
That it be supported by the government.
Okay, Nupur Sharma wants to come in. Nupur Sharma wants to come in of the BJP, respond to Danish Qureshi. This debate is being set up very well by Mr. Bhakt Ahmed. No response has come from Danish Qureshi to what Mr. Bhakt Ahmed said. He said that parties like the MIM that Danish Qureshi belongs to, fearmonger. They want to enslave Muslims, keep them ignorant so that they can use them as vote banks, etc., etc. Danish Qureshi, that was the charge. You didn't answer the charge. You went on some other tangent. Nonetheless, Nupur Sharma responds to you.
Good evening, Rahul, to you, to co-panelists, and so also to your viewers. There must be some reason that the Honorable Guwahati High Court has actually upheld the decisions taken just in the recent past by the Himanta Biswa Sarma government in Assam. The fact is the Repealing Act has been upheld, and the Honorable High Court of Assam finds no reason to interfere in his decisions to actually withdraw funding and not sponsor anyway under the constitution. If we were actually a secular state, the government should not be sponsoring and helping and encouraging religious text knowledge. Rather, the schools they should be funding should be those schools who are completely involved in educating normal STEM education system and in ensuring that the pupils come out well read enough to be applying for jobs and sitting for competitive exams. Now this is the sole reason why obviously the High Court has actually upheld his decisions. Now point number 2, and more importantly, only last year the Allahabad High Court has actually noticed the Uttar Pradesh government, and remember under Yogi 1.0 Rahul, in the first year itself Yogi Adityanath ji actually cancelled registration of 16,000 plus fake madrasas who were working as, say, madrasas under some, and they were protected by Trust Act, because most of these properties come under Waqf and they are protected by trust laws. And herein you had fraudulent registration of 16,000 plus madrasas who were taking all possible benefits of the policies at large, but did not even have a principal or a teacher or even pupils. The fact is that in Uttar Pradesh itself, there has been a reduction in the number of students going to madrasas, and this has become a cause of worry. In fact, the Allahabad High Court also wants to know if there are women. Allow me to please finish. Please allow me to finish. You can speak when you are spoken to. The Allahabad High Court has actually issued notice to the Uttar Pradesh government seeking information as to whether these madrasas, comply with Article 28 of the Indian Constitution, as well as how many women are actually allowed or not. Now, herein you had Mr. Danish Qureshi, if I'm not wrong, he came up with a figure of 60%. I want to see the news article if he has any, because you can just, throw a figure in the air. I would like to inform him the Gujarat Regulatory Fee Department of the Gujarat government has ensured throughout the pandemic time that there is a 25% reduction in private school fees. So when he is throwing numbers like 60%, back them up with evidence, because I do have on paper that the Gujarat government took a decision when the pandemic hit so that it doesn't actually pinch the private households so much and students continue to study. They took a complete 25% cut on school fees. So come out with numbers which actually are backed by facts.
Nupurji, after the deduction of 25% also.
The government should not be teaching.
Now have a patient to listen.
The government of...
Nupurji.
Show me. No, I have not finished.
Complete.
I have not finished and even the host hasn't, the anchor hasn't asked you to come in. So don't lose patience, please.
Rahul Shiv Shankar called
even after the 25%, please show me the article. No.
I'm telling you that only don't.
And I would urge,
please show. Okay, just both of you. 1 second. Okay, so let me get.
Show the article.
Okay, let's get Danish Qureshi.
Show the article.
Okay, Nupur Sharma is asking for proof.
Okay,
Danish Qureshi, because the charge that has been made by Mr. Ahmed is that you people, the MIM, parties like that and others, use Muslims at vote banks. We have the Sachar Commission report. The Sachar Commission report pointed out very clearly that the so-called secular parties such as yours, the Samajwadi Party, the Congress, did very little for Muslim uplift. This is a fact. The Sachar Committee report is out there. So you tell me, you oppose something. Let me also ask you, Mr. Qureshi, tomorrow, when the demand is made, let's introduce the Gita in some schools. You say it's communal. Ghulam Nabi Azad says we should not mix religion in education. NCP says propagating just one faith is wrong.
First of all,
I mean, Mr. Bhakt Ahmed is agreeing with me. You're not giving out any sort of response based on any facts. You're just generalizing. Yes. Respond, sir. Respond.
Okay, Rahul. Okay, Rahul. First of all, any political party is not dependent on the certificate of the Mr. Bhakt. So please don't tell him now not to give certificate about any political party. We are not having... just a minute. Now, second thing is that Nupurji was saying that show me the proof. First of all, why 20%? Sorry?
He says, don't get personal.
I'm answering the question of Nupur Sharma ji. Now, Nupur Sharma ji told that 25% of fees has been deducted by the state government of Gujarat.
Very rightly said that you have no response to this genuine question of mine. Tell me why have you given the begging bowl
Rahul
to
what
Muslims,
said is right or wrong. I will reply to him. I will reply to that. But the basic, what is the problem with you people?
Like no other party has done it. And you blame BJP, you blame RSS because you have done nothing for the last 55-60 years. And let me tell you, these madrasa students, they have one of the highest caliber compared to other students. And we want that their talent should be tapped for this good governance. They should become professors. They should become players.
Okay. We can't speak over Please. Let me step in here.
But now the thing is,
you have been politicizing.
Danish Qureshi
is having a dream that a Muslim has a computer and a Quran in his hand. I think India needs, first of all, sufficient electricity to operate the computer or laptop.
Sir,
did we have that?
Danish Qureshi, please, let me step in here.
I don't think that this is
Let me step in here. Are you saying, sir? One second. Are you saying that 1 minute, please?
Have no answer. You say
I'm not going to allow everyone to speak over each other. I'm giving everyone 5 seconds and I'm lowering everybody's faders. It's not right. Please. Okay. Now, Danish Qureshi, what kind of argument? No, Danish Qureshi, don't speak over me. What kind of argument are you making? Are you saying that people who go to madrasas are going in the darkness? They're also studying somewhere. They're also being state funded. Why should they be state funded to teach religious education? As simple as that. Number two, you know that there are disparities. You know I'm reading out to you the NCPCR report. Obscurantist education is being given. The products are coming out with a very tunnel vision of the world. They are not in consonance with modern times. What is your problem with modernity? Why do you always make it about an RSS, some sort of agenda? I can't understand this. the Chief Minister of Assam wants to shut down Sanskrit schools too. What's wrong with that? He's being very, very upfront.
If anybody don't have any problem with the Sanskrit school, they can have. But if anybody wants to educate in madrasa, what is problem with you? If you have any problem that this is not modern, go and give the infrastructure to modernize that. But instead of modernizing that, this is a problematic.
A syllabus is a syllabus. You can't modernize, sir. The holy book. Can you modernize the holy book? You tell me. Can you rewrite the holy book? I'm asking you.
No, this is not a.
No, this is what do you mean?
Subjects can be added, nah.
No. Why? Why? Then add the Gita also.
No, what you mean? I can't understand that.
Let's have Gita also.
What do you want?
No, then what is your problem? When we say that let's have the Gita, then you have a problem. You said, you see the country is a secular country.
The whole minority education system has its own rights. Tell me, is the madrasa
to help with minority
madrasa is illegal in India?
We want to do away with these two words from the constitution, majority and minority. The words like majority and minority have divided the house. These words have divided the nation. Do away with majority and minority. Please, spare Muslims. Let them fight for themselves. We don't need people like you.
Of all, after that, we will talk on that.
Can I ask you? Danish Qureshi, if you want to teach the Quran, if you want to teach the Quran, if you want to give religious education, Mr. Qureshi, a very simple question, and also Mr. Saj Sherwani, let me ask you, Ishkaran Bhandari and Ratan Sharda are also listening very peacefully. Let me bring them into this conversation also. Ratan Sharda, I'll put it to you like this. Okay, modernized madrasas, state-funded modern madrasas will also teach the Quran and they will also teach computers. Now, in my view, what kind of secular democracy are we trying to build here? Why should my state taxpayer money go to exclusively teach the tenets of one religion? Then let's open it up. Ratan Sharda. Are we making a mockery of our constitution, of our commitment to secularism? Ishkaran Bhandari, I want you to come in on the legal question. Saj Sherwani, on this bizarreness. Yes, Mr. Ratan Sharda.
Rahul, Danish Qureshi is the person who mocked at Shivling and then deleted the tweet. So this is the kind of mindset these people hold. So I cannot hold them responsible for whatever kind of statement they made. He did not speak about 60% proof that Nupur asked. So he can just keep on shouting. Cold figures are much more louder than the shouts these people make. Now tell me, when you talk of madrasa, what kind of people we create? They say earth is flat. They say sun goes around the earth. This is taught. They is taught very openly, and this is the modern mind. And these people have been isolated from the mainstream. They are cocooned in their own world. They break out of the mainstream Indian politics, Indian citizenship, and they become isolated, exclusivist, because that is the kind of education they get. And look at you talked about the crime figures, also talk of the unemployment. I am very sure if you look at the unemployment figures, the people who come out of madrasa are unemployable because they will know only Urdu, they only religious text, they know nothing about the modern science, modern mathematics, nothing. And why should government finance non-secular institution? Tell me, does right to nurture minoritism from the constitution stretch that much that you can ask, you can demand money from the state and teach you that you don't belong to a state, but you are pan-national? If you talk of Ummah, you don't talk of nationalism because you oppose nationalism. These are the kind of things that disturb me. Then there are no girls. What about gender justice? So again, whether it's gender justice, whether it's homophobic nature, whether it's LGBT, all this education is totally outdated 7th century education. You can teach a religious text, but you cannot make people zombie into believing just one book, one religion, and exclusivist of everything else. This is my problem. And they want to modernize. Why they ask government to modernize? You modernize, then demand secular funding from the school. You cannot demand money for the madrasa. Then you say, आप इसको modernize करो, भैया आप modernize करो, government पैसे देगी. Why do you want money for your religious text, for religious education? And you are creating, as I said, people who cannot be employed. Then you talk about unemployment. They cannot talk to people all over the India. They have their own world.
And there is very little oversight. Nupur Sharma talked about some statistics from Uttar Pradesh. Let me tell you, After Assam, it's Uttarakhand's government that has come out, and this is news just breaking, orders an inspection of 425 madrasas. State government writes to the education department, make a list of unauthorized madrasas. God alone what is being taught in these madrasas back there. Ishkaran Bhandari, and I want to bring in Saj Sherwani. Ishkaran Bhandari.
Rahul, let's start. In India, in Assam, we law passed put the government to fund madrasas. That was the perversion of secularism. We should have debated it in 1990s. But nobody debated it. We were a nation where Somnath Mandir could not be rebuilt by the government fund. But madrasas teaching exclusively to a certain community, dogma of that community would get funded from the state. Or Himantwan, I must compliment, even as the education minister of Assam, he said that, and as the chief minister, he did it. He was very clear-headed. He said the state will not fund madrasas. That was challenged in the High Court. The Honorable High Court upheld it. State funds cannot be used for religious purposes. That is the basic of secularism. So if we are having a debate on secularism, we should understand it means not funding madrasas. Secularism does not mean funding madrasas. That's the basic. Now let me come to the second point of it. It's a very simple point. Name the top 20 politicians, Muslim leaders of this country. कितनों के बच्चे मदरसास में पढ़ते हैं, कितनों के प्राइवेट स्कूल पढ़ते हैं और कितनों के अब्रॉड पढ़ते हैं. That number itself will give a huge input, a huge light would be shown on the fact that why certain people are told send your kids to madrasas, while our kids will study in fancy private schools, boarding schools or abroad. And lastly, putting kids in madrasas where if they come out of it and they are not qualified for private sector, government sector or business with modern education is, as Himanta Biswa Sarma said, a violation of their human rights, because those kids are not choosing to be deprived from being a part of the economic stream when they grow up. A state has to protect the human rights of kids who cannot make the choice themselves. They have to have education which enables them to apply for jobs. That is basic human right and child protection of every government to do.
Saj Sherwani, Ishkaran Bhandari calling out a elemental hypocrisy. He says that Muslim leaders such as yourself will send your own children to foreign institutions, to nice schools, private education, but you don't mind the others going to madrasas. Is that true, Saj Sherwani?
So, Rahul, I find it quite amusing that all of these people yelling on your channel, talking about madrasas. I don't know how many people they know whose children go to madrasas or have passed out from madrasas. This is a situation that I deal with day in and day out. I know lots of people whose children go to madrasas, who have graduated from madrasas themselves. And let's look at the reality. 90% of the madrasa students in India belong to the very poor families.
You are talking with such authority.
Who can't really afford to send their children anywhere else.
No, give some figures.
Yes, let me finish.
You have not researched and studied it.
I didn't interject when you spoke. I did not interject when you spoke. I did not interject when you spoke. If you want to interject, you may as well answer my question and continue with the debate just by yourself, because you seem to be very good at doing that.
I will do that.
So if I can either finish or they can try and finish. They can try and finish my sentence.
Okay, you finish your sentence. You finish your sentence.
There are a number of people. Sure. Let me finish. I know a lot of people who, when given a choice, would rather go to a school than send their children to a madrasa, for the very simple reason that they cannot afford to do so. Most of these people, like I said, come from the poorest of poor. They belong to poor families, and I'm sure my experienced colleagues on this debate know as well that there are even some poor non-Muslim families who send their children to madrasas. I mean, there have been many reports over the years where these children have topped the schools, where they've done very well in the madrasas as opposed to the Muslim students. Now, it's not what you say, but where you say it and how you say it, sometimes that's more important. Coming to an event organized by the RSS, where the Chief Minister is saying that madrasa should be shut down, the word madrasa should be removed, the UP Chief Minister coming and talking about how namaz is not being offered on the streets anymore. It's making a point, making a particular point and talking about this whole politics of language of division and hatred and polarization that the BJP is very good at, has always been very good at.
Again, you're
So
changing the goalpost because this declaration of putting madrasas and no, please let me put the facts on the table. No, Sar Sherwani, there is a point here. This declaration that you are referring to. Hang on, 1 second. Can you allow me? Can you allow me, Mr. Sherwani? See, you said that
it's trying to be vitriolic.
1 second. You said that where it's made the decision or the announcement matters more, perhaps, than the intention. Right? That's what you said, quote unquote. Now let me tell you, what he said was a follow-up of a policy that he's already implemented in his state, at a state level, of getting rid of all Sanskrit tolls as well as madrasas. So he stands for this. He wants modernization, and he's not stopping. Excuse me, Mr. Sherwani, he's not stopping anyone from getting a religious education. He says, do it at home. Go to private, schools or colleges or whatever you want to, or tutorials, and learn there. He's not stopping you from accessing your Quranic wisdom. He's only saying, let's have modern schools. And thirdly, are you saying that there are no Hindu poor children? That there are no other poor except only Muslim poor who have to go to these madrasas?
I'm not.
Come on, Sar Sherwani, these are not.
You yourself.
These are not.
You yourself started off.
Let me bring in Mr.
Yes, Rahul, I'm answering a question.
Okay,
you yourself started off your program by saying that the enrollment rate at primary school levels for Muslim children are a lot less. That is the truth. And I for one am not against the modernization of madrasas at all.
Actually not, because you never went to a madrasa, and I'm sure your children don't go to a madrasa, do they? Did you go to a madrasa, sir?
Why would they? I don't want to send them to a madrasa.
There you go. So it doesn't matter. You sit here and argue. Why would you want to send
them? Going to madrasa, get a proper education.
Wow. This is fantastic.
Ishkan Bhandari is going to madrasa. Give me 1 minute.
I think people missed where I said that people who have a choice to send their children to normal schools will not send them to madrasas. You completely ignore that because you choose to hear what you want to hear.
Let me answer.
It's that simple.
That is why, Rahul, I started by saying the hypocrisy. Name 5 big leaders. Somebody has become a barrister from London. Somebody has done major studies in UK or US, and I'm talking about the most prominent families. Yes, they don't want the new generation of poor kids to become doctors, barristers, and to become architects because they do not want empowerment, they don't want informed choice, they want a vote bank.
Okay, they want a vote bank. Firoz Bakht Ahmed, respond to Sar Sherwani.
Of course we do.
Thank you, friend. Let me just speak for a couple of seconds.
To give provisions to these children to go to the other schools.
Just 20 seconds. Just 20 seconds. All my worthy friends. I will just take 30 seconds. Now, Rahul ji, I heard my friend. He talked very genuinely about these madrasas. This is true that these madrasas are run on shoestring budget. Now the madrasas which were actually modernized in the state of Rajasthan, in Jaipur, there is one place known as Ramgarh. In Ramgarh there is one madrasa, Madrasa Jamiatul Hidayah. There they modernized the madrasa. They taught English, Hindi, Sanskrit, mathematics, geography, science, everything. Now the children, some children of that madrasas, they are in Grindlay's Bank, they are working in UNO, in USA, in the office, and they are having some wonderful jobs. Why? Because these children who actually were exposed to modern education, religious plus secular brand of education, they had broken all these boundaries, and now they are reckoned with a lot of respect and regard.
Absolutely.
So my humble request
let me also tell you, viewers, last I checked, and I'm happy to be corrected, that primary education in India is free in government schools. So you can send children. I don't know this argument about the poorest of the poor must only go to madrasas to study, or poor Muslim people can only afford to send their children to madrasas because, you know, that's where they get free education. When the government provides till up to the primary level, they even give them midday meals.
For all the children who go to these madrasas to regular schools, I'll be the first person who
this is a problem. Viewers, you just heard Saad Sherwani saying, I don't want to send I never went and I don't want to send my children to madrasas, but it's okay. I'll send them. I'll send other people's children to madrasas. Well, viewers, look. Yes,
no, I never said that.
Yes.
Rahul, you are
none of them would be interested.
I never said that.
One second, Rahul. Barring one, Mr. Azim Premji, people like Saad Sherwani would never be interested in actually building an actual school, an educational school. He threw some number like 90%. You have to really look for that lone diamond as to how many people who come out of madrasas
I'm sorry, but my family does run a school where children study for free, so I'm sorry.
One second, I'm not Charu, I'm Nopur. You should know who you're debating
okay, anyhow,
with.
Look, let's not make this personal. Let's not make this personal. The fact is, viewers, when madrasa modernization was envisaged, even that was opposed. And today, Mr. Bak Khan will tell us that even when they decided that many syllabuses in madrasas must undergo an overhaul, even that was opposed at that time. Today, we can sit back in satisfaction and say some modern madrasas are doing a great job in giving both secular as well as Quranic education. But at that time, this was also viewed with suspicion. So change, viewers, is opposed because the aim is something completely different. And what is thrown is, oh, this is Hindutva. This is Hindutva. It's not modernity, it's Hindutva. I'm moving on, viewers, because what I'm going to show you today on this show will give you the chills. This shocking visual will reveal the radicalization going in the state of Kerala in a march carried out by radical group, the PFI, that has been described by the Kerala government, no less, as an extremist organization. In a rally brought out by them, a child who's barely in double digits was heard giving death threats openly to Christians and Hindus. His communal rhetoric is shocking. Is shocking. Yes, and this in front of thousands of PFI workers, his own guardians who did nothing to stop him. In fact, they echo him. They allowed him to lead. Now it seems, viewers, this group is using children to further its communal designs. First, listen to this shocking diatribe. Listen to this. This, viewers, passes off as street protest amongst PFI cadre. And what do we hear towards the end? This young child says, if you don't behave well, we know how to free you from your life. That's the unstated part. We know about Azadi if you don't behave well. He says, God of death is going to visit your home soon. This is a hate that has been injected into this child, and he has no idea why. His future has been completely ruined and stunted. This mindset is going to haunt him. And this happens right in the heart of Alapura, viewers. And he doesn't just end there. He goes on to then issue threats to specific communities, Hindus and Christians. This is not cute, viewers. This is chilling. This is diabolism. And his parents must be booked for abusing their child. In fact, the NCPCR has issued a notice to the Kerala government seeking action, but till now, no arrests have been made. Till we are reporting this story, last cross-check, no arrests have been made. This child is in serious need of rescuing. Listen to what he goes on to say. This is not the first time that the PFI has spewed venom targeting a community. Viewers, Hindus and Christians were put on notice just yesterday, but in October 26, 2021, viewers, a rally endorsing violence against Hindus, man posed as Chief Minister Yogi was tied up, walked through the streets, caned, hit, whipped. It was all done to dramatize and send out a message that anyone dressed in saffron clothes must be treated in that particular manner. Anti-saffron agenda again, February 20th, 2021, workers dressed in RSS uniforms paraded, men in RSS uniforms chained and dragged. The message was, if you see an RSS worker from the Hindu community or even perhaps from the Muslim community, chain him, drag him, humiliate him, and God alone knows do what else. Viewers, this is not the first time. We also know, viewers, that this is being justified. The PFI has come out and said, oh, well, yes, the child was part of our protest rally, but we didn't feed him any of these slogans. Ironically, viewers, and I'm going to show you that clip and put the nat up on that clip just a little bit, the child leads, and all the PFI cadre and sympathizers who are carrying the banner echo him. He's their cheerleader. So there's no getting away from this. And I want to open this up. And I want to bring in a few of our guests this evening. And I want to bring in Majid Hydari first off the bat. Majid Hydari, I'm sure you condemn this. I hope you're not going to bring out some rationalization of this act. You're not going to say that, oh, this has been done because, you see, today Muslims are feeling very, very insecure. And that's what's given them this feeling of hatred, intolerance towards other communities. I just hope you're going to take an evolved stand and say this is unacceptable and all these people should be arrested forthwith, put in jail.
Well, Rahul Saab, this video of juvenile delinquency needs to be seen in the light of our common collective Desi belief, which is Bache Man Ke Sache. This video is reflective of the fears in the minds of Indian Muslim families because of the hijab controversy, halal controversy, azan controversy.
No, 1 minute. First of all, Mr. Hydari, 1 second. Mr. Hydari.
Hindu artifacts beneath
No, please, Mr. Hydari, don't say this tonight. Please, this is very wrong. I know you come from a state. No, 1 second. I know you come from Kashmir, where children have been groomed to attack. They've been given paid. No, listen to me, please.
In the mind of Muslim
let me finish.
Is reflected on the children.
Let me finish.
This is as simple as
this is not a child who is speaking voluntarily. He has been tutored. Can't you see it? He's being used as a mascot. For hate.
I'm saying this is a case of juvenile delinquency.
This is not juvenile delinquency, sir. This child has not suddenly come to his head to start abusing Muslims and Christians. Please. Take a more evolved stand. I know you come from a state where this is rationalized in the name of alienation. Their children are paid money by the Pakistani deep state through their beneficiaries in the valley, and kids are paid money to throw stones at the idea of India.
Sir, you are not letting me speak. I am saying this is a case of juvenile delinquency, but with regard to a reason and cause, which is the saffron politics. The Muslim families are always in the scare for the last many months now. We have hijab controversy, halal controversy, and now Gyanvapi. I was coming to Gyanvapi. What if there are some Hindu artifacts beneath that masjid? That is how India has evolved into a unity in diversity.
You're mixing up three different issues. You're mixing up three different issues. Gyanvapi issue is in court. No one has taken the law into their own hands. No one is going out there. No, 1 second. And spewing this kind of hate. 1 minute. Nupur Sharma wants to respond to you. She's raising her hand. Nupur Sharma, respond to Majid Hydari.
Why was this case taken to court? That is the first question.
You know, Rahul, Mr. Majid Hydari is actually just exposed what they do. A child born, a newborn baby is basically like a blank slate. He only learns or she only learns what you teach them. Be it in Shaheen Bagh, be it in this instant case, these people are teaching them to become what? Suicide bombers? And bomb who? Call of Muslims, perhaps of all kufrs, because all he is doing is ranting against Christians and Hindus. So this is what you're teaching them. You're teaching your children to be terrorists in the future. Well, congratulations to you. But the fact is that actually goes on to show what kind of hatred people like you actually harbor, and where you're taking the future of these very little innocent babies. A 5-year-old asking for the deaths of the Prime Minister of this country, in a democratic country, somebody who's elected democratically, it's only going to boomerang upon you. I have nothing left to say, Rahul, because
I just want to come in here. You see this viewers, Ishkaran Bhandari is also listening in. You know, words like juvenile delinquency are being thrown around. Ishkaran Bhandari, I'll tell you. You see, there was a community of Kashmiri Hindus. Since we are talking to Mr. Majid Hydari, he'll be familiar. He comes from the valley. There, hundreds of Kashmiri Hindus, children, lost their homes, lost their parents in some cases. Did they go out there and form a lashkar and then become jihadis and then shout slogans such as these, calling for death upon all Muslims? No, they didn't.
Rahul, what has been spoken by this person on your debate, that Muslims are in fear, so they are speaking this. This is the same logic given to do genocide of Kashmiri Hindus, Kashmiri Pandits. This is the same logic which people sit on TV debates to justify genocide. The language you are showing is very clear. There is no fear. Hindus buy rice for last rice. This is a call for genocide. Nothing more, nothing less. And we saw that genocide happening in Kashmir, and the same justifications being given that we were under fear or this fear or that fear, so we did genocide. And lastly, let me tell you, the child is on the shoulders of an adult man. Maybe the child will not be held guilty because the law protects it, but the man carrying the child, the people organizing the rally with such calls are being made, the people repeating those calls, all of them are guilty, and I hope for one. Because even today, PFI has not been banned pan-India. Even today, its leadership is not in jail. On your debates, we have had this debate, I think for last how many years, I don't know. I hope finally the leadership is put behind bars, which is organizing all this, and excuses are not made anymore.
I'll bring Nupur Sharma in on that, but first, Majid Hydari has raised his hand. Yes, you want to respond, Mr. Hydari.
Sir, I want to make a humble submission. How will you convince a Muslim child who sees that there are restrictions on his taste bud, that you have restrictions during Navratra on eating halal, who finds that the female folk of their family have restrictions on hijab, as we found in Karnataka, who sees that his parents can't pronounce the azan from masjid loudspeaker because now there are new restrictions, who finds that the great Mughal emperor is being demonized. How will you convince a Muslim? How will you convince a Muslim who has said Bharat mein rehna hoga, Vande Mataram kehna hoga? No, how will you convince a Muslim child? Please enlighten me. Thank you, Nupur Sharma Saiba. Kindly enlighten me.
Allow me. I will answer this. What did he say? How will you convince a Muslim child that there will be no loudspeaker for azan? Well, perhaps by teaching that child about the Constitution of India and the rule of the law as implemented by the Honorable Supreme Court and not the law of the Sharia. That's what you do. Like I said, Rahul, I think I caught the problem in the initial opening remark itself. The problem is what they're teaching their children. You better want to teach them if agar India mein rehna hoga, to Bharat ka samvidhan bhi padna hoga, Sharia nahi padna hoga. Let's start with that.
Viewers?
The problem lies with you as to what you are teaching your children, and if you want them to grow up to be suicide bombers,
Let's just show
the problem is on you.
Yes,
it's
one
nobody
second.
else's fault.
I need to say one thing. You see, Majid Hydari talks about loudspeakers, etc., etc. I just want to go back to those pictures of that young boy, actually, who's only perhaps 8 or 7, on the shoulders of his guardian, his parent, extremely irresponsible parent. Action should be taken against that parent. Now, viewers, just think about it. In Saudi Arabia, they banned namaz on loudspeakers. So our children running around in the streets of Saudi Arabia turning into hate mongers, saying that death to all clerics? No. This is a post facto attempt at rationalizing something that is completely inexcusable. It's absolutely inexcusable. And this needs to stop. We saw Kashmir going this way. We've seen Palestinian children going that way, viewers. People who can't fight their own battles democratically resort to this. And Ishkaran Bhandari is right. And Nupur Sharma, the time has come when you at the center mount a serious challenge to the PFI and ban it. Enough. I don't know. I'm beginning to suspect that the PFI is allowed to run riot in our streets because you also gain by polarizing. I'm getting this feeling, and it's a terrible one to get because it shows how cynical we have become with response to this group called the PFI. It is involved in hacking professors' limbs, in the alleged murders of hundreds and hundreds of people. Its cadre have ended up joining the ISIS in Syria and fighting against any known civilizational norm, and we still tolerate this in the name of appeasement. I don't know why, viewers. I need to move on to a very important story. Tomorrow, on Supreme Court orders, the District Court in Varanasi will be hearing pleas filed by the Hindu side to allow them to pray at the mosque, as was the case in 1992. We are talking about the Gyanvapi mosque. But on the eve of that critical hearing, Times Now has accessed an affidavit dating back to 1936. Was 75, 80 years, 85, 90 years back. The affidavit filed by the British government clearly states that Gyanvapi is not a mosque, as it wasn't even built, viewers, on Waqf land. Here is the affidavit. In Islamic law, a mosque that isn't built on Waqf land is deemed unholy and is therefore just a structure, not a place of worship. The contents of the affidavit have never been denied and therefore deal a mortal blow to the claims of the Muslim side over the disputed structure that was built upon the Visheshwara temple, demolished on express instructions of tyrant Aurangzeb. This is a known fact. Now, viewers, here is that very important affidavit which has been submitted in court today by the Hindu side, and Times Now has been able to access it. Now, if the Gyanvapi mosque has not even been deemed a mosque, a holy site, then why go out of your way to cheat Shiv Bhakts of their devotion? Allow them in. And I want to ask this question of Abhaynath Yadav, advocate for the Muslim side. Mr. Yadav, ये जो structure है ज्ञानवापी, ये तो mosque ही नहीं है. It's not even a mosque. 1936 affidavit makes it very clear. How do you respond, sir? आप इस पे क्या जवाब देंगे? यादव साहब,
जो 1936 में, yes, ये 1936 में जिस affidavit की बात आप कह रहे हैं, you're talking about which affidavit? This affidavit was filed in which case?
Sir, we are talking about a case that was brought by a Muslim gent. Let me take the name of the Muslim gent, sir. And in this particular case, this individual came out and said that this entire Gyanvapi structure should be declared a Waqf property. The British said that it is not a Waqf property. It's a 1936 matter. It's right here. Yes, and there are two individuals, the SD, R.V. Varnade and Rajeshwar Prasad, who's another SD. R.V. Varnade, ICS Collector of Banaras, do hereby verify the contents of the above written statement are true to my information and belief. Signed and verified this day, 4th November, 1936, in the Collector's Office of Banaras. And these allegations were made, and they have been therefore issued. This affidavit, after a study was conducted. So I'm asking you, अगर ये ज्ञानवापी जो structure है mosque ही नहीं है, तो ये holy site ही नहीं है, तो फिर आप हिंदुओं को वहां पर आके प्रार्थना करने दीजिए, क्या प्रॉब्लम है?
Okay, I will add something. You are talking about an affidavit. So first of all, we have to justify what is the evidentiary value of that affidavit. Affidavit in itself is not an. Rather, in the 1936, there was a case of Dean Muhammad was a Secretary of State. In that case, it is being said that 12 witnesses were examined and they proved that there was a temple. But it is very surprisingly, they don't say what actually judgment was passed in that case. I am telling you.
Sir, here is the affidavit. This is the affidavit relating to Deen Muhammad, Muhammad Hussain, Muhammad Zakaria.
Yes. In Deen Muhammad case, I have got a judgment. मैं पढ़ रहा हूँ आपको, वो निकालो फाइल वो. In that case, judgment निकालो, ज्ञानवापी फाइल निकालो. I have. You are showing the affidavit. I am showing you the judgment. Just a minute. Just wait 5 minutes. You are showing the affidavit. I am showing your judgment. Look here. This is the judgment. Look here. This is the judgment in that case, Deen Muhammad case. This is the judgment. I am telling you. It is declared that only the mosque and the courtyard with the land underneath are the Hanafi Muslim waqf, and that the plaintiffs and the other Hanafi are offering prayers and are doing other religious only in the mosque and on the courtyard, and that they have a right to celebrate the Eid, etc. You are quoting the affidavit in this case, and I am quoting judgment of this case. Which will prevail? Whether the affidavit will prevail or judgment will prevail? Why you are not talking
Mr.
about
Bhandari,
Mr.
Bhandari, I don't know on what matter this particular judgment, on what exact prayer this particular judgment has come, I don't know. But the context of the affidavit is very clear. This is Deen Muhammad and others versus Secretary of State for India and Counsel Defendant in the Court of Subordinate Judge Banaras. Mr. Bhandari.
Please don't give incomplete information. If you are talking about the affidavit, please have a knowledge of the judgment also.
One second, if I can answer. Rahul, let's be clear on one very foundational principle.
You are having an affidavit.
Let him finish, sir. He didn't interrupt you. Let him finish. Okay.
Now, the reason the entire place by an ecosystem, I don't say a party, but an ecosystem, was because they knew on fact evidence, if Hindus go to court, judgments will come in their favor. And that the Christian Janambhoomi as well as the Honorable Supreme Court have not at the outset said that places of worship Act may apply to it. That's for the district court to decide. In Christian Janambhoomi, the district court has decided. That is why they are in trouble, and that is why they are going from pillar to post from High Court to Supreme Court, where the High Court doesn't give them relief, where the Supreme Court also protects the area where the Shivling is found, and where the district court will now hear the matter. The reason for their places of worship act is because they know on evidence and on facts they would have not won that case. They would.
I don't know, viewers. The documents are there on your screens. I'm running out of time. The honorable lawyer who is representing the Muslim side says, go by the judgment. Viewers, we have an affidavit. He says, give full information. Well, the affidavit says that there is no question of any land ever having been with the Muslim side. Obviously, this is going to be now reviewed by the courts, viewers. They will come to the interpretation. But here really is the affidavit. He's showing us the judgment. Viewers, clearly, this is like an onion. You have to keep peeling one layer out of the other. But viewers, if you really go to that structure, you will see that there is a Hindu structure standing there looking back at you. You can deny it for all you want, but it's there. It's one of the strongest claims. I'll leave it at that.
Times now. Action begins here.
क्या पूछूं आपसे कि आपका जो स्टे था कांग्रेस पार्टी में, ये शॉर्ट एंड स्वीट था कि हॉट एंड सावर था?
जब जब राजनीति में कोई फैसले होते हैं मैडम जी, तब एक बात बहुत तय होती है कि लोगों के हित के लिए, जनता की सेवा के लिए ये फैसला होना चाहिए, और उसी को देखते हुए ये फैसला लिया गया था। लेकिन जहां गए, जिस कांग्रेस पार्टी पर भरोसा किया, उनके नेताओं पर जो भरोसा किया, उससे एक बात तो तय हो गई थी कि ना ये जन सेवा करना चाहते हैं और ना कोई करता है। उसको रोकने का काम करते हैं। जो जन सेवा करना चाहता है उसको रोक दो, हम नहीं करना चाहते तो हमारे साथ जुड़ जाओ। और ये काम हम नहीं कर सकते थे। हम आंदोलन के जरिए निकले थे, लोगों ने हम पर उम्मीद देखी थी, हम पर भरोसा किया था, और हमने कहीं ना कहीं गुजरात के भीतर एक अच्छी उम्मीद को खड़ा करने का काम किया था, जो कांग्रेस को इनडायरेक्टली डायरेक्टली 2017 में फायदा किया था और मजबूत विपक्ष की भूमिका में आई थी। लेकिन आज कहां हुआ, ना आपको मीटिंग में बुलाते हैं, आपको वर्किंग प्रेसिडेंट बना दिया लेकिन कोई काम आपका तय ना किया। कहीं ना कहीं सिर्फ अपमान। और हमारे परिवार में और हमारे कई साथी कहते हैं कि अगर जहां सम्मान ना हो वहां अपमान नहीं होना चाहिए।
तो हार्दिक जी, ये सब आपको पहले से पता नहीं था? क्योंकि 2017 आप पॉलिटिक्स में आए थे और 2019 का चुनाव हुआ था, आप बहुत जगह साथ साथ घूमे थे क्योंकि आपने फॉर्मली कांग्रेस पार्टी ज्वाइन कर ली थी। और हमेशा से लोग यही कहते हैं कि कांग्रेस पार्टी एक प्राइवेट लिमिटेड कंपनी ओन्ड बाय एक गांधी परिवार है। तो आपको पहले ये पता नहीं था या अंदर जाके कुछ ऐसा पता चला जो आप चौंक गए और इतना सरप्राइज हो गए?
देखिए नविका जी, मैं 2019 में पार्टी ज्वाइन किया था। 2015 से लेकर 2019 तक मैं इंडिपेंडेंट रहा, जनता की आंदोलन किए, जनता की सेवा की, और हमारे आंदोलन के कारण अनेक योजना गुजरात के लोगों को मिली। कांग्रेस में ज्वाइन होने का रीजन ये था कि हमें ऐसा था कि यार हमारा कोई पॉलिटिकल फैमिली है नहीं, पॉलिटिकल परिवार नहीं है, चलो राहुल गांधी जी हमें प्रोटेक्ट करेंगे, इसीलिए हम पॉलिटिकल पार्टी ज्वाइन किया। पहले दिन से जो विपरीत परिस्थिति हमारे साथ होती थी, हर दिन हर मुद्दे को लेकर हम राहुल जी को मुद्दा बताते रहते कि आज इन लोगों ने ये किया है, आप थोड़ा देखिएगा। कोई रिस्पॉन्स नहीं, कोई जवाब नहीं। लगातार हम अपनी परेशानी पार्टी के भीतर जो थी वो राहुल जी तक पहुंचाई, लेकिन उन्होंने कभी स्टैंड नहीं लिया। तो हम जो इस भरोसे से आए थे, उस भरोसा तो हमें काम करने नहीं दे रहा था, वो तो प्रोटेक्ट नहीं कर रहा था। बात रही जब कोई लीडर दिल्ली से गुजरात आता है तो उसकी जिम्मेवारी होती है कि यार जो लीडर से यहाँ के स्टेट के, उन सबसे 1 by 1 मिल लिया जाए। कभी भी 1 by 1 मिलने
Times now. Action begins here.
For the last 2 years, the world has been relentlessly fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. As the countries across the globe prioritize vaccinations to keep the next wave of COVID at bay, India also rolled out precautionary jabs this year to achieve herd immunity against the virus. While COVID has not risen substantially in India in the last few months, the pandemic has not yet faded. India has remained on guard, but vaccination among children remains low and is significantly less talked about.
Immunizing the kids will not only check the spread of the asymptomatic infections, who can act as silent hosts for the virus, and which will lead to again spread in the society, but again it can also mitigate the severity, the intensity of the infection in children.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Himanta Biswa Sarma is not new to controversies and he finds himself in the midst of yet another one. The Assam Chief Minister has said that the word madrasa must not exist at all. He said these organizations are hurdles to the overall development of our children because they do not teach mathematics or science, leaving these Muslim children behind their peers. It's proving to be a hurdle in them becoming doctors and engineers, he said. Before we get into the merits of that argument, first listen in to the exact comment made by Assam Chief Minister.
भाई साहब, ये मद्रासा शब्द ही विलुप्त हो जाना चाहिए। जब तक ये मद्रासा दिमाग में घूमते रहेगा, तब तक बच्चा कभी डॉक्टर इंजीनियर नहीं बन सकता है। अगर बच्चा को आप स्कूल में जाने का समय आप पूछ लेता है कि बेटा तुम मद्रासा जा रहा है, तुम जुनाब बनेगा, इस रास्ते से तुम डॉक्टर नहीं बनेगा, तो कोई बच्चा मद्रासा नहीं जाएगा। मद्रासा में तो दाखिल किया जाता है वायलेटिंग ह्यूमन राइट्स, किसी वो रास्ता बंद हो जाता है, तो आप जरूर कुरान पढ़ाइए, उसमें कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, लेकिन सबसे ज्यादा पढ़ाइए साइंस, मैथ्स, बायोलॉजी, बोटानी, जूलॉजी। तो इसीलिए मद्रासा सब विलुप्त हो जाना चाहिए, नॉर्मल एजुकेशन होना चाहिए, और घर में आप खूब आपका धर्म पोथी पढ़ाइए, पूरा 2 to 3 घंटा धर्म पोथी पढ़ाइए, लेकिन स्कूल में ऐसा ही शिक्षा दीजिए जो शिक्षा से आपका बेटा डॉक्टर और इंजीनियर बन सकता है, प्रोफेसर बन सकता है, साइंटिस्ट बन सकता है। जो आप बोल रहे हैं मुसलमान लोग कुरान कंठस्थ कर रहा है, तो इसलिए उनमें बहुत ज्यादा मेरिट होता है। ये सारा मुसलमान भाई हिंदू था, कोई एज ए मुसलमान ये धरती में नहीं आया, भारत का धरती में सब हिंदू ही था।
Now here are some facts. As per the 2011 census, the literacy rate is above that for Muslims if you look at the overall India figures. Enrollment of Muslims in higher education is also lower than that of the overall national average. Could that be because of the rationale that Mr. Sarma is now putting forth? But the opposition netas are baying for the Assam Chief Minister's blood. They drew parallels to RSS-run shakhas and reminded the Saffron Party of the role madrasas played in the freedom movement. From accusing the BJP of furthering its Islamophobic narrative to alleging that Mr. Sarma was indulging in a divide and rule policy. Listen in to the opposition.
इस वक्त कंपटीशन चल रहा है कि हमें गुजरात मॉडल हिंदुस्तान को बनाना है, हमें उत्तर प्रदेश मॉडल बनाना है। उनका इस वक्त मुकाबला हो रहा है एक दूसरे के साथ कि कौन ज्यादा से ज्यादा मुसलमानों को तंग करेगा, मुसलमानों को खुदा ना खास्ता नेस्त नाबूद करने में पहल करेगा।
They want to destroy whatever language, culture, faith, practice, way of life of Muslim. Every aspect of Muslims are being attacked by the RSS people.
He's a chief minister, he is free to take that decision. But he has no respect for the Constitution of India. More than that I will not comment, because he is a new convert to BJP and he talks all sort of things to please, like sycophants, which I have nothing to say about it.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, the opposition seems to be conveniently only talking about the Assam Chief Minister's strike on madrasas. But they forget that according to the same order which decided to cut off state's funding to madrasas in Assam, even Sanskrit schools got the axe. 80% of the Sanskrit schools have become meaningless, and they are merely factories to pass the matriculation exam, is what Mr. Sarma had observed back then. The impact was that 1 crore annually is now spent by the state government on making education better. So the legitimate question that I want to ask tonight on the Newshour: is appeasement holding back reform? That's the question and the debate coming up on the other side.
You're watching the News Hour at 9. Debate number 1 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
And joining me tonight, Shehzad Poonawala, national spokesperson of the BJP, Dr. Anand Ranganathan, author, Tehseen Poonawala, political analyst. But my first question goes to Shoaib Jamai, president of the Indian Muslim Foundation. And Mr. Shoaib Jamai, I want to ask you, modern education is the argument Himanta Biswa Sarma is putting forward. What can be wrong with that? Because if you're going to put everything as a communal agenda, you're not going to see the positive. Modern education is what he was emphasizing. Do you think Muslim children should get modern education, yes or no?
नाविका जी, एक कहावत है, एक होता है अनपढ़ और एक होता है कुपढ़। अनपढ़ तो जाहिल होता है, वो वर्ड मैं यूज़ नहीं करूँगा, लेकिन एक होता है कुपढ़, पढ़ने के बाद भी जहालत की बातें करना। अब किसी भाई साहब को देखना हो कि मदरसा का मतलब क्या होता है। मदारिस एक अरबी वर्ड है और उससे बना है मदरसा, और उस मदारिस का मतलब होता है एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशन। एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशंस कई तरह के हो सकते हैं। अब एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशंस हिंदू घरानों में आप देख लीजिए, संस्कृत विद्यालय होते हैं, आश्रम होते हैं, कई सारे गुरुकुल होते हैं। अब जरा बता दीजिए, इन आश्रम से, इन गुरुकुल में
होते हैं कि होते थे?
अभी भी हैं कई जगह पे, और इसको शुरू भी किया जा रहा है। इनमें से कितने साइंटिस्ट निकल गए और कितने यहां से निकल गए। लेकिन मैं आपको बता दूं कि मदरसे से कौन निकला। मदरसे में पढ़े थे एपीजे अब्दुल कलाम, बचपन में देश के बहुत बड़े साइंटिस्ट बने। मदरसे से पढ़े थे डॉक्टर राजेंद्र प्रसाद, बिहार में बन गए देश के प्रेसिडेंट। मदरसे से पढ़े थे राजा राम मोहन राय, उन्होंने एक सती प्रथा खत्म करवाई। मदरसे से पढ़े थे मौलाना अबुल कलाम आजाद, और मदरसे से पढ़ने के बाद वो देश के पहले शिक्षा मंत्री बने, और उन्होंने ही आईटी और एम्स की स्थापना की और वो नींव रखी। मदरसे के बारे में शायद इनको जानकारी और नहीं है, क्योंकि इतिहास में इनका तो अंग्रेजों के साथ साठगांठ का मामला रहा है। लेकिन मैं बता दूं, एक तहरीके रेशमी रुमाल चली थी, जिसमें मौलाना महमूदुल हसन साहब रहमतुल्लाह अलैह, उन्होंने एक तहरीक चलाई अंग्रेजों के खिलाफ कि रुमाल के जरिए से जो है संदेश पूरे देश में पहुंचता। वो तहरीक इतनी बड़ी थी कि अंग्रेजों ने उनको 30 साल जो है यहां से माल्टा के जेल में रखा, असीरे माल्टा। वो कहां से पढ़े थे? मदरसे से पढ़े थे। और तहरीके रेशमी रुमाल में जितने भी लोग शामिल हुए, मदरसे से पढ़े थे। अलीगढ़ से लेकर के देवबंद तक कोई ऐसी पेड़ नहीं था जहां पे मदरसे के पढ़ने वाले आलिमों को लटकाया नहीं गया, क्योंकि वो अंग्रेज से लड़े थे। और 1857 की क्रांति में मदरसे का कितना अहम किरदार रहा, ये शायद आपको नहीं पता होगा। इसलिए मदरसे, मैं ये कह रहा हूं कि आप ये कह सकते हैं कि कई मदरसे ऐसे हैं जो फॉर्ज डॉक्यूमेंट से बने, उसको बंद कीजिए। कई मदरसे ऐसे हैं जिन्होंने मॉडर्न एजुकेशन को नहीं अपनाते हैं, या फिर मैं हमेशा एडवोकेट रहा हूं कि मॉडर्न एजुकेशन होनी चाहिए। और आज हमने देखा, जब मॉडर्न एजुकेशन दिया गया, मदरसे से पढ़ के आए हुए बच्चे जामिया मिलिया इस्लामिया में, चूंकि मैं उसी यूनिवर्सिटी में हूं, वहां पे ब्रिज कोर्स करते हैं, और ब्रिज कोर्स करने के बाद जब वो ग्रेजुएट करते हैं, उसी मदरसे का पढ़ा हुआ बच्चा आईएएस निकाला है। हमारे यूनिवर्सिटी से ट्रेनिंग लिया, उसने यूपीएससी क्वालिफाई की।
मदरसे में पढ़ना बहुत अच्छी बात है। हिमंत बिस्वा शर्मा, हिमंत बिस्वा शर्मा को इतिहास में नहीं, हिमंत दादा,
नाविका जी बस 30 सेकंड में, ये कहना कि मदरसा को विलुप्त कर दीजिए, ये अरे आप पढ़े नहीं है ना कि मदरसा का मतलब क्या होता है। एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूट होता है, एक अरबी वर्ड है। दूसरी बात यह है कि देखिए, राहुल गांधी जी इनके साथ क्या किए थे, और पिद्दी को क्यों वो बिस्किट खिला रहे थे, मैं उसमें नहीं जाना चाहूंगा। क्या इनका इतिहास, ये रोने लगे थे उस वक्त कि राहुल जी तो पिद्दू को यहां से महत्व दे रहे हैं, मुझे नहीं दे रहे हैं। लेकिन आज मुझे लगता है कि उन्होंने जो किया बहुत सही किया। ये देखिए, नए नए लोग हैं, नया नया मुल्ला ज्यादा प्याज खाता है। एक बार गुलाम नबी आजाद ने कहा था कि जो नया बीजेपी में जाता है ना, वो इम्प्रॉम्प्टू करता है, इम्प्रॉम्प्टू करता है, पुराने लोग ऐसे नहीं करते। इसलिए गैर जिम्मेदाराना बयान है।
बिस्वा शर्मा नए नए मुल्ले हैं अकॉर्डिंग टू शोएब जमाई, एंड लिटनी ऑफ थिंग्स दैट ही सेड।
नाविका जी, मैंने पूरी बात सुनी, इन्होंने सही कहा, अनपढ़ कुपढ़, और इस एक में होता है गड़बड़। ये गड़बड़ वाले मामले में है। गड़बड़ वाला मामला मैं बताता हूँ कैसे। उन्होंने एपीजे अब्दुल कलाम की बात की, बिल्कुल सही बात की, पर अगर एपीजे अब्दुल कलाम मदरसे में पढ़ते तो उनको पता है क्या सिखाया जाता? कि दुनिया चपटी है। उनको सिखाया जाता कि पीपल ऑफ लूट, अब मैं एक सेकंड बीच में मत बोलिएगा, पीपल ऑफ लूट शुड बी डिस्ट्रॉयड बाय द रॉथ ऑफ गॉड फॉर होमोसेक्सुअल एंड ट्रांसजेंडर एक्ट्स। मैं आपको बड़े शालीनता से पूछना चाहता हूँ शोएब जमाई जी, कुरान के हिसाब से होमोसेक्सुअल एक्ट शुड बी पनिश्ड बाय डेथ। दिस इज बीइंग टॉट इन मदरसा, क्योंकि वहां पे कुरान सिखाई जाती है। ट्रांसजेंडर को भी डिस्ट्रॉय कर देना चाहिए, मार देना चाहिए। क्या आप इसके पक्ष में हैं या आप इसके खिलाफ है? पहली बात तो पूरा हो जाने दीजिए, उसके बाद पूरा हो जाने दीजिए। नाविका जी पूरा हो जाने दीजिए, उसके बाद
पूरा नहीं हो जाइए।
अरे पूरा अच्छा चलिए बोलिए आप, ट्रांसजेंडर शुड बी पनिश बाय डेथ, यस और नो?
डिड यू फॉलो
ट्रांसजेंडर शुड बी पनिश बाय डेथ, यस और नो? मेरा समय को बर्बाद कीजिए, जवाब दीजिए। अरे जगदीश आप बताइए, ट्रांसजेंडर शुड बी पनिश बाय डेथ और नो? यस और नो? ट्रांसजेंडर शुड बी पनिश बाय डेथ, यस और नो? सवाल सिंपल है, गड़बड़ और बड़बड़ मत करो। कूपड़ अनपढ़, कूपड़ हो या अनपढ़ हो, बताइए पहले आप कूपड़ हो या अनपढ़ हो, या गड़बड़ हो या बड़बड़ हो?
हेलो शहजादी जी,
गड़बड़ हो या बड़बड़ हो? नाविका जी देखो, उन्होंने 4-5 मिनट बोला, दिस शुड नॉट बी अलाउड। इफ यू कांट आंसर द क्वेश्चन,
will you answer the question? Shiv Jamai, will you answer the question?
Transgenders be punished by death, yes or no?
It's my faith. Each and every verses of Quran, whatever the Quran says.
Will you kill transgenders? Do you believe death is what they deserve?
There is no verse in the Quran which ordered to kill the transgender.
Chapter 7 verse 80, Chapter 7 verse 81, Chapter 7 verse 82, Chapter 7 verse 83, Chapter 7 verse 84.
यार सूरह लूत का एक जिक्र है कि उस जमाने में ऐसा हुआ।
कुरान ये तो सिखा रहे हैं, उस जमाने का आज क्यों सिखा रहे हैं?
नहीं तो कुरान का कोई नया एडिशन भी है? कुरान का कोई नया एडिशन है? नहीं, कुरान का कोई नया एडिशन है तो बता दीजिए।
क़यामत तक कुरान का कोई एडिशन नहीं होगा। मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम।
No, let me move on because there are a lot of arguments I want to make. This is not a question about madrasa. This is a question about whether one should have modernity and opportunity versus identity. These people who are the practitioners of so-called secular politics and Islamophobia lobby have trapped Muslims in this ghetto of identity politics. I have one submission to make. तहसीन पूनावाला बहुत संपन्न कांग्रेस के नेता है, इसके अलावा सलमान खुर्शीद और रिजवान अरशद है। इनमें से ना कोई खुद मदरसे में पढ़ा है, ना ये कभी अपनी संतानों को मदरसे भेजेंगे। This is their hypocrisy. And I just have one more question for Tehseen and for Shoaib ji very seriously. इस मदरसे में कुरान सिखाई जाती है और कुरान में बताया गया है कि ह्यूमंस वर क्रिएटेड फ्रॉम क्ले। मैं आपको बता सकता हूं कौन सा चैप्टर है, वर्स है, अगर चाहिए तो। पता है ये आपको 1526? क्या आप इस बात को पढ़ाना चाहते हैं? क्या डॉक्टर लॉयर बन सकता है कोई ऐसा ज्ञान लेकर? दे आर अगेंस्ट एवोल्यूशन। कैन दिस एवोल्यूशन नहीं है? डू यू बिलीव इन एवोल्यूशन? डू यू बिलीव इन एवोल्यूशन? डू यू बिलीव इन डार्विन थ्योरी ऑफ एवोल्यूशन? शोएब आप एक डॉक्टर है, do you believe in Darwin's theory of evolution?
No.
Because no.
I don't believe in
You don't believe in Darwin's theory of evolution. This is what he is a doctor and he does not believe. This is what a madrasa education can do to you. That is exactly what I'm trying to say. Thank you very much.
It's not a law.
Then bring a paper.
Theory is not a paper.
Dr. Anand Ranganathan.
Theory can be changed from time to time.
Are you saying Darwin's evolution theory is wrong?
I had no desire to make
this. There is a very vast difference from universal law and theory. Theory can be changed from time to time. Universal law can't be changed.
अच्छा आप चेंज तो कर लीजिए।
आपको पता है यूनिवर्सल लॉ और थ्योरी में क्या फर्क है? कुछ नहीं पता आपको।
अच्छा डॉक्टर आनंद रंगनाथन, I don't want to make this JNU versus Jamia Millia, but I want to ask you. There are questions that Shehzad Poonawala posed to Shoaib Jamai. Obviously he can't answer them, and he's said that madrasas can bring out very, very successful and very, very educated and erudite people. Respond to him and his argument.
Yeah, good evening Navika and good evening to all my esteemed panelists. पहले मैं 2-3 clarifications दे दूं, उसके बाद मैं जो आपका सवाल है उस पर आता हूं। शोएब भाई गलत हैं। डार्विन theory is not a theory anymore, it is an axiom. So Shehzad is absolutely correct. Later on, protocells of Zostak, Stemmer's sexual PCR, Stanley Miller's experiment have amply proven, and genomic sequencing have amply proven that Darwin was absolutely correct. It is not a theory anymore, it's an axiom. बहरहाल वो अलग बात।
Meanwhile, Google search is on. Shoaib Jamai. What you were saying, axiom का meaning ढूंढ रहे थे. He was looking for the meaning of axiom.
I'm not looking for the meaning. I will refute him.
Maybe I thought.
Let him complete his.
उससे ज्यादा हाँ, उससे ज्यादा पर्टिनेंट ये होगा शहजाद अगर पूछें शोएब भाई से कि डज ही बिलीव दैट द प्रॉफिट असेंडेड टू हेवन ऑन अ विंग्ड म्यूल, शोएब भाई विल से यस इवन दो विंग्ड म्यूल नेवर एग्जिस्ट, बट वो अलग बात है। जो फेथ में बिलीव करते हैं वो फेथ में करते हैं, उनको आप देयर इज नो पॉइंट इन आर्ग्यूमेंट, राइट? आई मीन यू आर गोइंग टू लूज द आर्ग्यूमेंट, सो लेट्स रिमूव दैट।
बाबा मिल गए, वो आपका फेथ है, और शिवलिंग महादेव पूरे विश्व ब्रह्मांड में आप फेथ है, प्रकट हो गए फेथ है। लेकिन कोई मुसलमान कुरान पे बिलीव करे तो वहां पे नहीं, साइंस को लेके आइए। हाउ लॉजिकल इज दैट देयर इज ज्योतिर्लिंग एंड
he has said that कुरान में आप बिलीव करते हैं, करिए, he is not even objecting।
फेथ में बहुत है,
he is not, yes, so he is not objecting to the Quran।
I am a faithful Muslim, I am a practicing Muslim,
siding with you,
but I can refute
he is agreeing with you, भाई साहब,
from the fact।
आप जब गूगल में कर रहे थे, he was agreeing with you, आपने मिस कर दिया। You did not understand, he is saying you are most, आपके ऊपर ब्लेसिंग दिया कि आप अपने फेथ में बिलीव करिए, आप गूगल में डाइवर्ट हो गए। डॉक्टर आनंद रंगनाथ।
हाँ, नाविका, अब आपको पता चला कि आप जब इनको शोएब भाई को 5 बार कहती हैं कि आप घर से ही आ जाइएगा, तो ये कहते नहीं मैं स्टूडियो आऊंगा, क्योंकि इनको इंटरप्ट करना है। प्लीज शोएब भाई, आई डिडंट इंटरप्ट यू, प्लीज डोंट इंटरप्ट मी, इट इज बैड मैनर्स, प्लीज। आप जामिया से हैं, मैं जेएनयू से हूं, भाई भाई हैं, इंटरप्ट मत करिए, अच्छा नहीं लगता। नाविका, आई ओनली हैव 2 minutes नाउ बिकॉज हाफ ऑफ टाइम हैज बीन ईटन अवे, बट लेट मी कम बैक टू दिस टॉपिक, कैन वी प्लीज? Finally, here is a chief minister who is taking steps towards true secularism and not this sham variety this country has been practicing on the back of our pseudo-secular constitution. Navika, the state has no business running religious schools. Secularism is total, I repeat, total separation of religion and state. Our constitution sadly is plural, not secular. There are half a dozen articles and amendments and directive principles in our constitution that make it plural, not secular. In fact, the word secular was inserted in our preamble by Indira Gandhi during the emergency. It was absent from Ambedkar's constitution, and it is this pseudo-secularism that has allowed the state to control Hindu temples and run madrasas. In fact, it astonishes me, Navika, that Assam was running 614 madrasas whose primary job was to impart Islamic education in Sharia dictats. All these schools were now converted into regular schools by Himanta, so the pupils will have a choice to either continue there and receive non-religious education like other children, or leave and join private madrasas, to which no one should have any objection, as practicing and imparting religious teachings is a constitutional right. This is a step towards promoting inclusivity among the minority community and should be welcomed by all Indians. Kya bawal macha rakha? After all, if the children were being taught verses like do not marry your women to polytheist men unless they believe in Islam 2:21, or there is no deity except Allah 40:62, or those who deny the Quran, their necks will be shackled and they'll be dragged in boiling water and in fire filled 40:72, or those who disbelieve in our verses, we will drive them into a fire 4:56, or polytheists are the worst of creatures 98:6. If the children were being taught all this, I hope you can see the delicious irony, Navika, that here is a state accused of being a Hindu Rashtra by Muslims, teaching Muslims that Hindus are the worst of creatures and do not marry Hindus unless they convert. Well, good luck with promoting inclusivity. And just 10 seconds, Navika. Quote, madrasas are the hotbed for terrorism, unquote. Who said this? No, not Himanta. No, not even a Hindu, but a Muslim, Parvez Musharraf.
Well, do you want to respond to that, Tehseen Poonawala?
I just want to respond.
Shoaib Jamaiji,
thank you. Can I please respond?
Yes, Tehseen. At least the Congress party should not have any objections to Muslims participating in the national resources, where modern education is given to them, and the path is being shown to them that they can get as much education as anybody else by making madrasas or Sanskrit schools or education really religion neutral. Do you think the Congress party can actually give a compliment to Himanta Biswa Sarma, or will that be too much to ask from the Congress party?
Good evening, Navika. Thank you so much for having me on your show. Good evening to all your viewers and to the esteemed panelists and my fellow panelists. 2/213, it is the nature of women to seduce men in this world. For that reason alone, women should never be left unguarded. No, this was not said by Adityanath ji. He was just repeating what Manusmriti said. 2215, wise people should avoid sitting alone with women, mothers, daughters or sisters, since carnal desire, mothers, sisters or daughters, since carnal desire is always stronger. And I can go on quoting from the Manusmriti that even says that cheating women should be, their hair should be shaved and put on a donkey. Women of lower caste cannot marry men of upper caste, but I don't want to insult religious texts here. That's not what my objective was. Number two, Anand, I have so much respect for you, which is why Ambedkar said that that Manusmriti should be burned. Now, Anand, I have a lot of respect for you, but unfortunately you're wrong on one fact that you said, and again, with respect. I'm quoting from data that Shri Amit Shah ji gave the Parliament of India. Less than 6% of the major terrorist attacks that have happened in India under the Ministry of Home Affairs under Amit Shah ji are people who have studied from madrasas. This number is less than 9% in the 79 major terror attacks that have happened from the West. So obviously, Anand, you're wrong on the fact that madrasas are left to terrorist attacks. And Times of India, I quote a newspaper, Narika Ji Trust, Guru Nanak Ji also studied in a madrasa. Obviously, that did not impair Guru Nanak Ji or any of the other greats of India who studied in madrasas. I'm not here to defend madrasas. As Shehzad very rightly said, that I may perhaps not send my children to a madrasas. I may send them to an international business school, just like my parents sent me to a Christian convent school, sent Shehzad to a Christian convent school, which, by the way, in the Bible prescribes that homosexuality is also an act that is punishable, like the Manusmriti says, with death. But that is not what we are here to describe. I just have two very basic points to make. The fact of the matter was that madrasas played an important role, especially the Deoband madrasas, in our freedom. The BJP obviously is targeting it because they have nothing else to do. And if Anand, you or Shehzad believe, ma'am, that madrasas are against our country, then why is the union government, again quoting Times of India, increasing 80% funding to madrasas? My mother, I have been to madrasas where science, computers, English, maths is taught. Some of the greatest mathematicians have passed out from madrasas. And to Shehzad, just read Ibn Khaldun, his interpretations. Anand, you must read it on evolution. Evolution is something that the Quran has endorsed, and you must read Ibn Khaldun. I will send you a copy of it.
But Shoaib Jamai doesn't endorse. Such a soliloquy from Tehseen Poonawala. Both sides wanting to come in, Shehzad and Anand. Shehzad first.
Shehzad bhai, please go ahead. Yeah, so first
आप ही काफी हैं इन दोनों के लिए.
Tehseen, first of all, for your kind information.
Shehzad is brilliant. Like Himanta is in the wrong side, but he's brilliant. I agree on that.
Well, Tehseen, you're going to send your children to international business schools. Well, as soon as they are born.
I will.
Or will they?
I will.
Will they go through primary education, middle education? पैदा होते ही business school? Well,
I mean IB schools. Sorry, I meant IB schools. Sorry, I meant IB schools. I'm sorry, I meant IB schools. I meant that. But yeah.
It was a Freudian slip because of the brother-in-law.
May I just come in? Who's on the proverbial right side and who's not has been settled from last 5 years. So I don't need certificates from Tehseen where Himanta ji is and where I am, because after Himanta ji has come, there's been Congress Mukh Northeast. So that debate has been settled. Secondly, as far as Manusmriti is concerned, Tehseen Poonawala, you would be glad to know that the statue of Manu was inserted or put in Rajasthan High Court in 1989 when there was a Congress government in Rajasthan. So perhaps you should go and applaud them for celebrating Manu. But look, this is not a debate about which school I went to. The Christian convent school that you and I went to did not teach us the Bible at all. That is exactly what I'm trying to say. Why should Quranic or religious texts be the exclusive education given, and that too at state cost? And that is a denial of basic human rights to a Muslim or to a young Muslim person who should be given education in English, maths, science and other areas by which he can get a job and access to opportunity. This is not a debate about madrasa. This is a debate about opportunity versus identity. You want to keep Muslims trapped in their identity. And finally, one second, please have some patience, Tehseen Poonawala.
Sorry, but please, I would like to respond.
Yeah, you can respond. You can respond in your time. But the question that
I'll just take a minute to respond. Yeah.
Finally, the question that I'm trying to ask you is that why is it that today when this decision has been taken, it has been supported by the Guwahati High Court? You oppose that decision also. You are the people, if English, science, maths, etc. should be taught in a madrasa, would you also be okay with teaching Gita in the madrasa? Why should exclusive money of the government be spent to teach one religious text? If you want to teach madrasa, education, Quran, etc., it should be at your own cost. Why should the state bear that cost?
Thank you. Can I, very quick, can I respond to that? Just 10 seconds.
Okay, let me
Please give me 30 seconds. Yeah. My dear BJP friend Shehzad Punala forgot to say that Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Munshi Premchand, Rajendra Prasad ji were not taught Quran in the madrasas, and even today they are not taught. Quran is only taught to Muslim students. If you're a non-Muslim student in a madrasa, you're not taught to Quran. Madrasa? Number one. Number two. Please allow me to finish. I responded. Can a girl go to a madrasa? Okay, name a madrasa where a girl is going. Of course they can. Your mother and I served in a madrasa where girls go. Madrasa for girls. So many madrasa for girls. The madrasa for girls. Name one.
Dr. Anand Ranganathan, while they are waxing eloquent on madrasas and how many grades came out, you know, they are talking about 1 minute. They are talking about Raja Ram Mohan Roy. Ab Raja Ram Mohan Roy and his time and today's modernity, can they be compared? And today's, you know, the education, the modern education, the kind of teaching that happens in normal schools, modern schools, can that be compared to what was being taught in madrasas in the Raja Ram Mohan Roy period? You know, are they comparing apples and oranges?
नाविका, पहले तो मैं ये कह दूं कि एक बात एकदम साफ आ रही है, इनकी जो लॉजिकल आर्गुमेंट्स मैंने सुनी हैं उससे मुझे लगता है कि तहसीन जो है माय गुड फ्रेंड, वो शहजाद के भाई नहीं है, वो शोएब के भाई हैं। लेकिन मैं 2-3 चीजें कहना चाहता हूं कि इन्होंने जो मेरा नाम 3-4 बार लिया, नहीं आपका बिल्कुल एब्सोल्युटली वो अलग बात है कि आप मुझे अपनी शादी में नहीं बुलाया था, फ्री में खाने को नहीं मिला था। लेकिन दूसरी बात नाविका, सबसे पहले तो 2-3 चीजें I clearly see, I said 4 things and Tehseen tried to rebut me and unfortunately वो चारों चीजों में रिबट नहीं कर पाया। अब मैं आपको रिट्रेट करना चाहता हूं। नंबर 1, मैंने कहा आपको मदरसा में जाना है आप जाइए, आपको संस्कृत स्कूल में जाना है आप जाइए। हेमंता ने क्या कहा है? गवर्नमेंट पैसे नहीं देगी मदरसास के लिए, ये कहा है, विच इज करेक्ट। Why should a secular state pay for a madrasa? No, it should not. That was my argument. Number 2, मैंने परवेज मुशर्रफ को कोट किया था। तहसीन कहने लगे मैं आप किसी को गलत कोट कर रहे हैं, अमित शाह का। नो, आई कोटेड परवेज मुशर्रफ and I stick by that. He said madrasas are a hotbed for terrorism and he is a Muslim, right? Last I checked. Number 3, it is astonishing, तभी मैंने तहसीन भाई को कहा कि ये शोएब भाई के भाई हैं। मैं वैसे आई एम नॉट अ मिलिटेंट एथीस्ट, जिसको अपनी भावना में बिलीव करना है वो करे, बट फॉर हिम टू से दैट Quran endorses Darwinian evolution is the biggest joke of the day. Quran says Earth was created in 6 days. Quran says moon was split in 2. This is not what Darwinian evolution is.
Okay, now respond. Shoaib Jamai ji, respond.
अलग रखिए।
Shoaib Jamai ji, respond.
आप फेथ पे बात करिए, मैं मना नहीं कर रहा। शोएब भाई आप फेथ में बिलीव करते हैं?
1 minute, hold on. Tehseen, hold on.
साइंस पे भी जवाब देंगे और फेथ पे भी जवाब। पहले सुन लीजिए डॉक्टर साहब, साइंस पे जवाब दे दूं।
एक मिनट।
ओके।
मैंने आपको कभी नहीं रोका अपना फेथ प्रोफेस करने के लिए, आप खुद जानते हैं। तहसीन को भी नहीं रोका, शहजाद को भी नहीं रोका, नहीं रोका। आपको जो करना आप करिए, आपको जो बिलीव करना आप करिए, मैंने नहीं रोका। लेकिन ये मत कहिए तहसीन कि कुरान एंडोर्सेस डार्विनियन एवोल्यूशन। इट इज द बिगेस्ट जोक आई कैन थिंक ऑफ। प्लीज डोंट।
शोएब जमाई।
डॉक्टर साहब, चूंकि आपने कहा कि डार्विन थ्योरी ऑफ इवोल्यूशन जो है उसको आपने एब्सोल्यूट मान लिया और आपने कहा कि नहीं वो थ्योरी नहीं है, चेंज नहीं हो सकती।
एक्सियम
है।
You are certainly proving it wrong. The Darwin theory of evolution is not working on you. That is obvious. It is obvious tonight that at least on him the Darwin theory of evolution is not working. It's clear. That's their right.
No, Sajad.
That chocolate is from Israel.
आप चॉकलेट खाइए।
इजराइल ने बनाई है, आप खा रहे हो। मौलाना
ये चॉकलेट खाइए आप।
उसकी पैकिंग और कंटेंट इजराइल से बना है।
इसलिए आप ही के लिए लाया हूं मैं। इसलिए आप ही के लिए
डिस्कशन जा रहा है।
ठीक, मैं कह रहा हूं कि देखिए
डार्विन
थ्योरी ऑफ इवोल्यूशन, डार्विन थ्योरी ऑफ इवोल्यूशन,
and now there are 2 phones in his hand.
तो भाई क्यों डिस्कस करते हैं यार?
अभी आप
बोल रहे थे, मैं कुछ बोला क्या?
चलिए आप साइंस को उल्टा
सुनिए यहाँ से 1 मिनट।
आज साइंस को उल्टा
गुस्सा आ रहा है, प्लीज।
देखिए डॉक्टर आनंद रंगनाथन
जी,
डेविड कॉमेन एक इवोल्यूशनरी बायोलॉजिस्ट हैं। उन्होंने किताब लिखी द टैंगल ट्री, अभी कर लीजिएगा, नेशनल ज्योग्राफिक ने उसको पब्लिश किया। टैंगल ट्री में उसने लिखा कि जो हमारा ये कॉन्सेप्ट था कि डार्विन थ्योरी ऑफ एवोल्यूशन जो है वो ग्रेजुअल वेरिएशन ऑफ स्पीसीज के बारे में है, वो गलत है, क्योंकि ह्यूमन जीनोम का 8% ऑफ डीएनए जो है वो इवोल्यूशन से नहीं है, बल्कि इन्फेक्शन से, जो वायरल इन्फेक्शन जो हुए उससे एक्वायर्ड हुए हैं। तो डार्विन थ्योरी ऑफ इवोल्यूशन का जो वो कॉन्सेप्ट था, बेसिक कॉन्सेप्ट, उसको उसने गलत प्रूफ किया। ये नेशनल ज्योग्राफिक ने छापा, कोई मदरसे में पढ़ा नहीं है।
ये बुक मदरसे में पढ़ा रहे हो?
ये डेविड कॉमन ने लिखा है,
डेविड कॉमन की बुक मदरसे में पढ़ा रहे हो? पॉइंट ये है ना, डेविड कॉमन की पढ़ा लो।
एक बात,
आप कम से कम डेविड कॉमन की पढ़ा लो मदरसे में।
जामिया मिलिया
मदरसे में डेविड कॉमन पढ़ा रहे हो क्या? वहां पे तो उसको काफिर बोल दोगे।
जिस जामिया मिलिया इस्लामिया यूनिवर्सिटी में हम पढ़े हैं और जहां हम यहाँ से रिसर्च
मदरसे में बताइए ना,
मदरसे के भी बच्चे हैं और स्कूल से आए हुए बच्चे हैं, अभी आपको पता नहीं।
नहीं, तो मदरसे में ये पढ़ाया कि नहीं? मदरसे में ये पढ़ाया कि नहीं?
मदरसे में भी पढ़ाएंगे,
पढ़ाएंगे कब?
इसके लिए मदरसे में पढ़ाने की जरूरत नहीं है। कोई भी यहाँ से नेशनल ज्योग्राफिक चैनल पे जाए या उसके वेबसाइट पे जाए और ये देख ले।
So now what Shoaib Jamai is saying, there is no need for higher education because you can go to the National Geographic channel and you can watch all this.
The Tangle Tree.
So no.
आप वो बुक देख लीजिए, द टैंगल ट्री, जब डेविड कॉमन ने लिखी है। सुन लीजिए, अब आप दे रहा हूं, आपने होमोसेक्सुअलिटी पे बात की, मैं आपको कोट कर रहा हूं। ट्रांसजेंडर और होमोसेक्सुअलिटी मैं बता रहा हूं। ये मनुस्मृति है।
मनुस्मृति
अरे सुनिए
जीवन का
चैप्टर नंबर 23,
मनुस्मृति के लिए कोई
चैप्टर नंबर 23 पेज नंबर 326, homosexual act are cited as punishable offense by fine. It punishes non-vaginal sex with a small fine.
Who is going to school to read Manusmriti?
नाविका, इसीलिए 10 सेकंड।
आनंद रंगनाथन, अरे भाई, that is the problem. Your faith and your education has got mixed up. Keep faith separate and keep education separate, my dear friend. That is the whole problem. Now Anand Ranganathan is coming in.
Talking about his faith, what he newly acquired from being congressman to the BJP में ना कहाँ चूना लगा रहे, मुझे नहीं पता।
1 minute.
आनंद रंगनाथन, मनुस्मृति से मैंने प्रूफ किया कि होमोसेक्सुअलिटी को क्राइम कहा। मनुस्मृति ने चैप्टर नंबर 23 पेज नंबर 326 डार्विन थ्योरी को डेविड कॉमन ने इसको रिफ्यूट किया है, कई साइंटिस्ट ने रिफ्यूट किया है, और ये अपनी किताब
को पढ़ना है, इसको पढ़ना है तो ना कॉलेज जाने की जरूरत है, ना मदरसा जाने की जरूरत है। नेशनल ज्योग्राफिक चैनल देख लीजिए। डॉक्टर आनंद रंगनाथन इतना डॉक्टर
नाविका, अब मैंने एकदम प्रेम से सुना शोएब मेरे भाई को, शहजाद को भी। प्लीज अब मुझे 30 सेकंड दीजिए, ज्यादा नहीं। नंबर 1
डॉक्टर साहब, मैं आप चाहता हूं आप बोले, मैं नहीं टोकूंगा, लेकिन प्लीज इनसे भी रिक्वेस्ट कीजिए कि वो मुझे बोलने ही नहीं देते। यार माइनॉरिटी को इतना दबाएंगे क्या? पूरा गला ही हमारा दबा दिया, बोलने ही नहीं देते हमारी।
मैं आपका ना गला दबा, मैं आपको बहुत अदब से पानी दे रही हूँ, पानी पीजिए, गुस्सा मत कीजिए।
सोचिए,
गुस्सा मत कीजिए।
आनंद रंगनाथन नहीं बोलने देते हैं, सड़कों पे क्या करते होंगे, कैसे वो लिंच किया होगा, सोचिए, बताइए। सफोकेशन है भाई,
बेचारा। शोएब भाई अभी विक्टिम कार्ड मत निकालिएगा। जब मैं जामिया
में योगा नहीं कराते, वो भी प्रतिबंधित है उनके, योगा नहीं कराते मदरसे में।
आनंद रंगनाथन, नो दिस टाइम शहजाद।
मैं चुप।
नाविका, नंबर 1 on the non-science issue. It is a real trap that both Tehseen and my good friend Shoaib Bhai have set themselves up by comparing Manusmriti with Quran and quoting this. I say, and Shahzad would also say, and any Hindu would say, I don't believe in burning books, but I condemn Manusmriti and burn it if it says it.
Very good.
Let Shoaib and Tehseen say that they condemn Quran and let them burn Quran.
फंस गए। वेरी गुड बोल रहे थे, बोलो। Now you say. Now say.
ये मैंने नहीं कहा, ये डॉक्टर अम्बेडकर ने कहा है।
बोलिए भाई।
डॉक्टर अम्बेडकर ने कुरान के बारे में कुछ कमेंट नहीं किया, लेकिन डॉक्टर अम्बेडकर ने
मनुस्मृति, आई कंडेम मनुस्मृति, आप कंडेम करिए।
देखिए, दैट इज हिज फेथ।
अभी तो आपने
ये तो शहजाद पूनावाला के नाम से टीवी टीवी पे आते हैं, आप कहिए मैं इस्लाम को नहीं मानता हूँ, आप कह दीजिए यहाँ पे कुरान को नहीं मानते, आप कह दीजिए कि मैं कुरान को नहीं मानता हूँ,
आनंद 30 seconds and then आनंद
बिल्कुल। देखिए साइंस की बातें, इसीलिए साइंस को रिलीजन से अलग रखें। आप रिलीजन में बिलीव करिए, लेकिन साइंस के बारे में गलत मत बोलिए। शोएब भाई से डायरेक्ट सवाल है, चिंपैंजी का डीएनए इज 98.4% आइडेंटिकल टू द ह्यूमन डीएनए। That's right. 98.4. How is it possible without Darwinian evolution and a link? आप बताइए चिंपैंजी का 98.4 आइडेंटिकल कैसे हो गया?
Yes, there is a refutation for this theory also, because every species have a single source of origin. That's why in the species there is a similarity of
Please give me 10 seconds.
I'm so tempted to go
I request 10 seconds. Okay. Navika, there's only a single source of origin, that is the origin of their stupidity. देखिए आपके आर्गुमेंट में आपकी टोपी से ज्यादा छेद है। मैं आपको पूछ रहा हूँ मनुस्मृति को, एक सेकंड सर आप सुन लीजिए ना, मौलाना सुन भी लीजिए, आपके आर्गुमेंट में आपकी टोपी से ज्यादा छेद है। अब सुन लीजिए, मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ
कौन सा छेद है, बताओ।
मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ पूरा छेद ही छेद है।
बताओ ना,
आप छेदी चंद बन जाएंगे। सुन लीजिए,
अभी छेदी चंद हम
अब सुन लीजिए। मनुस्मृति कोई अगर एक्सक्लूसिवली सिखाए और बोले कि आपको यही सीखना है और इससे आपके आगे बढ़त होगी जीवन में, तो वो गलत है। कौन कह रहा है? पर आप कहिए कि केवल कुरान सीखना यही जिंदगी है।
भाई
बोले गलत है,
यहाँ से सिर्फ
बोले गलत है, हिम्मत नहीं है इनकी।
कंप्यूटर भी सीखते हैं,
कहाँ सीख रहे हैं? मदरसे में जो 600 650 अनमैथ मदरसे एनसीपीसीआर कह रहे हैं वहां पर कुछ नहीं सिखा रहे, 400 साल पुराना इतिहास सिखा रहे हैं।
I only 1 minute. तहसीन पूनावाला,
भाई शंभू से और शहजाद से बाहर निकलो और सोचो कि डार्विन थ्योरी सही है, परंतु आप उसको नकारते हो। आप नकारते हो किसी इंसान और इंसान का डीएनए 98% सेम है।
I'm sorry. Don't bombard me with science. Political science is also a science, and I'm a student of political science and economics. So please don't bombard me with the Darwin theory. But last question that I want to ask Tehseen Poonawala. Tehseen Poonawala, I want to ask you, when the Sachar committee report said what it did, it said 25% Muslim children in the 6 to 14 years age group have either never attended school or have dropped out. Only one out of every 25 undergraduate and 50 postgraduate students in premier colleges is a Muslim. NCAER figures show that only about 4% of all Muslim students are enrolled in madrasas. I want to ask you the question about Muslims' children being left behind. The Sachar committee recognized it. Do you even today think, just for politics and appeasement, you will hold the banner of madrasas and not go in favor of reforms and modernity?
First of all, there's been almost a 60% dropout of Muslim students going to madrasas, because less than 4% current Muslim students study in madrasas. Anand's example of terrorism and Pervez Musharraf is to do with Pakistan. I'm quoting to do with India and the West, so that's not what I'm answerable for. But it's the government of India that is funding madrasas, and it has an 80% increased funding. So this question should be posed to Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi, why is he increasing funding for madrasas. And my last point, Anand, at any given point of time, you must read various interpretations of the Quran and various scholars. Not just the theory of evolution, the theory of relativity is mentioned there. I'm not a promoter of religion, I'm an atheist. But all I'm trying to say is that people don't have access to basic education, if somebody's got education, let's not mock them, let's not be bigoted. That's all I'm trying to say.
Well, Tehseen Poonawala asking people not to be bigoted and trying to spread love for religions when he supports a party that has believed in only one religion, which is the religion of appeasement, which they called their version of secularism. And that is one version that hasn't evolved with time. So, a lot for Tehseen Poonawala to apply in terms of the Darwin theory, even to the evolution of the meaning of the word secularism as followed by the Congress party. We leave it at that on debate number 1, but thanking you, all my panelists who joined me on this debate. On the other side is the big debate that we're going to look at. 40 hours, 23 meetings and one agenda. Ensure India is on a pedestal for the world to admire. That pretty much sums up Prime Minister Narendra Modi's whirlwind Japan tour. All eyes are on the Quad meeting tomorrow, but let me give you a quick glimpse of what his day one looked like. Today was all about harnessing India's soft power and business acumen. Prime Minister Modi met with the head of 30 Japanese businesses, preceded by the rollout of the US-led Indo-Pacific Trade Framework. The pitch to all of them was Chalo Bharat, a pitch that definitely resonated with the corporate honchos. Because right after the meeting, this is what the business bigwigs had to say. Listen in.
India is growing very quickly. A new startup every day. New unicorns coming very quickly. Prime Minister Modi is committed for the success of India, for supporting startup, for creating more unicorns and making center of high tech in the world.
The reforms of Prime Minister Modi are undescribable in the sense that he is bringing reforms which are changing whole of India into a very modern landscape, and especially the self-reliance theme of Prime Minister Modi.
We have a quite good opportunity to discuss with Mr. Modi, President Mr. Modi. He has a quite a strong intention to develop and enhance the DX capability in India.
But the highlight, as always, was the Prime Minister's interaction with Indian diaspora, many of whom turned up for a packed meeting amid cries of Jai Shri Ram and Bharat Mata Ki Jai. As the jam-packed auditorium waited for the Prime Minister's arrival, chants of Dekho Sher Aaya reverberated, pointing to not just the popularity of the Prime Minister, but also feeling of pride it brings about amongst the expats. While hailing India's contribution to the world, the Prime Minister asserted that he is someone who has learned to draw a hard line. Listen in.
भारत में आज सही मायने में पीपल लेड गवर्नेंस काम कर रही है। गवर्नेंस का यही मॉडल डिलीवरी को एफिशिएंट बना रहा है। तो वो आने वाले 25 साल यानी आजादी के 100वें वर्ष तक हिंदुस्तान को हमें कहां पहुंचाना है, आज हिंदुस्तान उस रोड मैप तैयार करने पर लगा हुआ है। मेरी भी एक आदत बन गई है, मुझे मक्खन पर लकीर करने में मजा नहीं आता है, मैं पत्थर पर लकीर करता हूं।
Now compare this with what Congress Member of Parliament Rahul Gandhi said about India when he was speaking in London just 48 hours ago. Some would say berating India is right out of the Congress's playbook, because Mr. Gandhi spoke about how India is not in a good place and all it would take is one spark to cause trouble. There's an unstable environment in the country, he declared. Listen in.
India is not in a good place. The BJP has spread kerosene all over the country. You need one spark and we'll be in big trouble. And so I think that's also the responsibility of the opposition, the Congress, that bring people together. Bring the communities together, bring the states together, bring the religions together and say, listen, we need to cool this temperature down, because if this temperature doesn't cool down, things can go wrong.
You mentioned polarization.
You're watching the News Hour at 9, debate number 2 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
And joining the debate along with our panelists in debate number 1 is Sanjay Jha, suspended Congress leader. And Sanjay Jha, is this how you sell India when you're abroad? Here, you know, you've seen the contrast, what the Prime Minister does and what Rahul Gandhi does. Mr. Rahul Gandhi wants to bring states together. How many states has he brought together? How many of them have come with him, and how many are willing to do business with him? On the other hand, he says we need to bring all religions together. How much has he actually been able to deliver on that front as well? After Rajasthan, any answers to that question, Mr. Sanjay Jha?
Well, Navika, the truth is that we don't live in an economy. We live in a society. India, even if it has a non-BJP government, will attract foreign direct investment. People will pump money into our stock markets. We are a big consumer and labor market in the world. We'll always be attractive to the multinational enterprises. The issue here that Rahul Gandhi raised in London was the democratic recession that India is facing, the communal configuration that has almost become like, literally everyday episode. And the fact that at the end of the day, as a secular, inclusive, progressive society, India is now being looked at with great skepticism by the very people who invest in our market. So while it's very easy to go abroad and have many people come on camera and talk about the liberal economy and a privatization, blah, blah, the truth of the matter is that India today has made negative headlines. So when I say today, I mean for the last several years, especially since 2014, let me be more specific, for lynching, for attacking minority, for threatening individuals, authors, writers, journalists, NGOs, anybody who questions the government becomes an anti-national. We have made headlines for actually snooping on people on Pegasus. And truth be said, we can contest the WHO data, but people don't even buy into our data that almost 47 lakh people may have died under COVID. If Rahul Gandhi, whatever is said in London, it's easy to criticize him. I don't support everything he says, but everything that he said is being talked about all over the country and outside to the Western world or to any part of the globe for several years. I mean, look at the press freedom index, look at the democracy index.
Anand Ranganathan, Sanjay Jha says inflation not a problem, it is actually the democratic recession which is the problem. Sanjay Jha says that we live in a country where people will come in with investments regardless of who is in power. Respond to Sanjay Jha, and does he need a reality check?
No, first of all, Navika, I object that you continuously call my good friend Sanjay Jha as a suspended Congress leader. I mean, are you waiting for Rehan's grandson to become the Congress president before this issue can be settled one way or the other?
That's Sanjay Jha's problem, not mine.
No, but I hope this issue is settled. I mean, Tehseen is in the inner coterie of the Congress. I hope he does something to this. I mean, I'm tired listening to, you calling Sanjay Jha as a suspended Congress leader. I mean, come on, it's been a decade. Now, let me come to this issue. First of all, Rahul Gandhi, I've said this before, Navika, I say it again. Making sense of Rahul Gandhi is as easy as consuming rasam with chopsticks. I don't know what the guy says. There on that podium, he doesn't even know that it was his grandmother who inserted the phrase that India is a nation in the preamble of our constitution. और ये कह रहा है कि इंडिया नेशन ही नहीं है. अब क्या समझाए इसको? ईवीएम का शॉर्ट सर्किट तो पता नहीं, राहुल गांधी का शॉर्ट सर्किट में कोई प्रॉब्लम लगती है मुझे. एंड नंबर 2, as far as the bundle of lies my good friend Sanjay Jha blurted out, I mean, I don't have time, we're losing our on time to basically rebut all of them, but just 2 would suffice. Number 1, he talked of the, again, expectedly the WHO figure. Does he know that 20 health ministers of all states, including Congress ruled states, have blasted this WHO tally of 57 lakhs or 47 lakhs? I hope he knows this. He should talk to the health minister of Chhattisgarh and Rajasthan, who say that this is not the worth, the paper it is written on, the WHO figure. Number 2, Mr. Sanjay Jha talks about democracy. Now again, I don't need to go into that. I don't need to go into the fact that he's talking about the world is taking notice of all this. Does he know that this year, this month in fact, has been the highest FDI that have been pulled in India? Does he know this for the last 4 or 5 years? Does he know that India has ratcheted up the highest GST in months? India is on a recovery, and people, erudite, intelligent people like Sanjay Jha, who should take command of Congress, should be encouraging this rather than parroting the line of Rahul Gandhi.
But Rahul Gandhi doesn't need erudite people. He's going to be there dithering on whether he wants to be president or not, and when other suggestions are given inside the Chintan Shivir, he just walks off. Tehseen Poonawala. The question here is that Mr. Rahul Gandhi believes that he is getting states together. I want to ask you, how many political parties in India are willing to do business with Mr. Rahul Gandhi's and your party?
They will when the time comes, but let me just quote three things, all from Times of India, May 2015. People were ashamed to be called Indians before he became Prime Minister. I'm talking about Modi and his narcissistic statement in South Korea. Bharat ludak raha tha, main Pradhan Mantri bana uske pehle at the BRICS summit. And for a man, and we play the visuals, who walked away while the Indian national anthem is playing, he had to be caught by his hand by a Russian official and pulled back. This is how Mr. Narendra Modi has embarrassed India abroad. But I just want to give one data to Anand while supporting Sanjay Jha, who I believe should contest the Lok Sabha elections, and I will definitely recommend. But here's Anand. In the state of Gujarat, from where Mr. Narendra Modi hails, 1,02,230 deaths due to COVID was accepted by the government of Gujarat, source Times of India. 87,000 was compensated for, whereas the Gujarat government, source Times of India, recorded 10,579 deaths. That is 10% of the deaths they themselves have accepted. Now this is the Modi and the Gujarat model of lies, 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 and therefore Sanjay is right. India slipped on the democratic index, India slipped on the freedom index. More so, Mr. Modi at Red Fort said India's passport strength has gone up. India's actually slipped on the passport index. You may cross-check this, me, again, source Times of India.
Respond, Shehzad.
Navika, first of all, Anandji, how do you know that the adjective suspended is only for his status in Congress and not for his logic? So please don't jump the gun in these matters. Secondly, as far as Tehseen is concerned, look, Rahul Gandhi says India is a union of states. Actually, Rahul Gandhi is a union of organs, with the most important organ missing out. And therefore, Tehseen, let me educate you, that emergency was imposed during Indira Gandhi's time. I don't know if it was democratic recession or it was democratic inflation. Maybe the suspended man can tell us about that. I don't know, when you had 10 biggest riots, Hashimpura, Bhagalpur, Meerut, Malyana, Mumbai, for which you blame Shiv Sena, and now you're allying with them, Ahmedabad, Jalgaon, Bhiwandi, Delhi riots, yaad hai? Genocide tha. That time was all good in communal atmosphere, and that time nobody wrote about it in international press. But does he mean to say that those 10 riots which claimed 10,000 people's lives are any less? And today somebody writes something in a Washington Post, you take that seriously. But I'll tell you what the real problem is. एक तरफ है मोदी जी जो जापान में बजा रहे भारत का डंका, और दूसरे है राहुल गांधी who's comparing India with Pakistan and Sri Lanka. ये सोच और अप्रोच का फर्क है. One is who puts nation first, one is who puts family first, one is who puts राष्ट्रहित first, one is who puts परिवार हित first. और दिक्कत यही है ना कि राष्ट्र नीति पर राजनीति करना राहुल गांधी की आदत बन चुकी है. और इसीलिए देखिए जापान में क्या हो रहा है, देखो देखो शेर आया, और काठमांडू में क्या हो रहा है, देखो देखो प्लेयर आया. आई एम ओनली टेलिंग यू दिस, संजय झा, राहुल गांधी निकल गया आपकी लॉजिक को सुनकर. ओनली क्वेश्चन दैट आई हैव फॉर यू इज दैट इफ यू हैव अ प्रॉब्लम, इफ राहुल गांधी हैज अ प्रॉब्लम, why go in the problem against Modi or problem against BJP, start berating your country? अरे पिताजी से शिकायत होगी तो पड़ोसी के घर पर जाकर पिताजी की शिकायत करोगे क्या संजय झा? नहीं करोगे ना.
So Sanjay Jha, you know, Sanjay Jha, now there are so many leaders of the Congress party who themselves come out and say that we don't get time. People leave Congress party. Hardik Patel in an interview over the weekend told me that chicken sandwich Piddi party doesn't give time to leaders who are satraps in their own states. But he has time to go abroad and completely demean India. Is that the way to go, Sanjay Jha?
But one thing never understood as to the BJP kind of saying that again is, why do you go and criticize India abroad? This is not the question actually trying to turn down the country. We live in an age, internet and social media. Everything about India is known day in and night out. You know, whether there's other people like the New York Times, the Guardian, the Washington Post, or the Financial Times, that's the problem. But these are the actual newspapers and magazines with the highest degree of credibility. So the simple answer at the moment is this, that the BJP can't be so thin-skinned to criticism. I mean, if Rahul Gandhi is as a member of the opposition is talking about the red flags that are being raised every day. I mean, you know, you and I know that, Navika, the attacks on the minorities are now reaching alarming and dangerous proportions. And Mr. Modi is remarkably quiet. The world is watching. You know, I have worked with American companies. I will tell you this. They are ruthless enough. They will put aside all these human rights issues until Mr. Modi is Prime Minister. It suits their commerce. It suits their economics. They'll pursue it. Then Mr. Modi knows it better than perhaps you and me. They denied him visas on what happened in the Gujarat genocide of 2002. They welcomed him after he became Prime Minister.
Well, if they're willing to wait till Modi is around, Dr. Anand Ranganathan, is that a bad deal? Because at the state in which Congress is Modi here for a short time or a long time? What do you think?
अभी तो मोदी हैं, उसके बाद अमित शाह, फिर योगी और उसके बाद हेमंत शर्मा, तो लिस्ट बहुत लंबी है. मुझे लगता है तब तक संजय झा जी सस्पेंडेड कांग्रेस से उनका डिसीजन हो जाएगा. लेकिन मैं दो चीजें यहां कहना चाहता हूं नाविका. नंबर वन, I won't even go into the fact that my good friend Sanjay Jha is being ruthlessly selective at mentioning only the lynchings or attempted lynching on Muslims and ignoring the fact that more than 200 mob attacks, hate crime mob attacks have been taken up by or have been conducted, if that's the word I can use, by Muslim mob on Hindus, Dalits and non-Dalits. But I want to say one thing. Navika, this time last year, India was going through a really rough period. Do you know, both my good friends Tehseen and Sanjay were talking about scores of dead bodies being buried on the banks of Ganges. You know, do you remember that during COVID? Last week, ANI has reported that more dead bodies are being buried right now on the banks of Ganges. These people have not apologized. You know the reason? People bury them right now and wait for the monsoons for the Ganges to come and take the dead bodies away. That is a rite and a ritual. Have you ever heard Tehseen apologizing for defaming India then?
No, because the colored lens that they use to view India and to view Modi is just their color of their lens. The question is, do they ever want to see the truth? Do they want to look at it in the eye? Do they want to look within, or is it just very simple to comment on others? That really is what the Congress is doing. No looking within, no chintin, no introspection. It is only pointing fingers at others, forgetting the fingers that point back at them. That's where we'll leave this debate. Thank you to all my panelists for joining me on the debate. For the last few days, ladies and gentlemen, we've been getting you every single detail of the Gyanvapi case as it happens. And tonight, it's no different, because the Newshour is still your only destination for all things about this case. The Varanasi District Court today started hearing the Gyanvapi case and set the wheels in motion for a series of historic events. In light of the survey conducted so far, where a Shivling has been claimed to have emerged from the Wazukhana in Gyanvapi Mosque, the Hindu side today had a simple appeal. They want the court to let them worship the Shivling, and that their plea be heard first in the series of petitions that have been filed before the court in Varanasi. But the counsel for the mosque insisted that the only plea that should be heard on priority is whether the Hindu side can ask for an extended survey. Their counsel also reiterated that the plea should be dismissed as it's violative of the Places of Worship Act of 1991. But on the eve of that critical hearing, Times Now has accessed the affidavit dating back to 1936, which was part of the Hindu side's reply filed in the Supreme Court last week. The affidavit filed by the British government clearly states that Gyanvapi is not a mosque and it isn't built on Waqf land. In Islamic law, a mosque that isn't built on Waqf land is deemed unholy and is therefore just a structure, not a place of worship. Will this now become the bedrock of why the Hindus have rightful claim over the Gyanvapi? Well, we hope to find out tomorrow when the court gives its reserved verdict. And all the details and analysis will be right here on the Newshour and on Times Now. So don't forget to tune in tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. Taking your leave today, good night, be safe, and I'll see you tomorrow. Same time, same place, same show and same channel. Times Now.
You were watching watching the News Hour at 9. Stay tuned. Times now. Action begins here. The News Hour at 9. You were watching the News Hour at 9. Stay tuned. Times now. Action begins here.
क्या पूछूं आपसे कि आपका जो स्टे था कांग्रेस पार्टी में, ये शॉर्ट एंड स्वीट था कि हॉट एंड सावर था?
जब जब राजनीति में कोई फैसले होते हैं मैडम जी, तब एक बात बहुत तय होती है कि लोगों के हित के लिए, जनता की सेवा के लिए ये फैसला होना चाहिए, और उसी को देखते हुए ये फैसला लिया गया था। लेकिन जहां गए, जिस कांग्रेस पार्टी पर भरोसा किया, उनके नेताओं पर जो भरोसा किया, उससे एक बात तो तय हो गई थी कि ना ये जन सेवा करना चाहते हो, ना कोई करता है उसको रोकने का काम करते हैं। जो जन सेवा करना चाहता है उसको रोक दो, हम नहीं करना चाहते तो हमारे साथ जुड़ जाओ। और ये काम हम नहीं कर सकते थे। हम आंदोलन के जरिए निकले थे, लोगों ने हम पर उम्मीद देखी थी, हम पर भरोसा किया था, और हमने कहीं ना कहीं गुजरात के भीतर एक अच्छी उम्मीद को खड़ा करने का काम किया था, जो कांग्रेस को इनडायरेक्टली डायरेक्टली 2017 में फायदा किया था और मजबूत विपक्ष की भूमिका में आई थी। लेकिन आज कहां हुआ, ना आपको मीटिंग में बुलाते हैं, आपको वर्किंग प्रेसिडेंट बना दिया, लेकिन कोई काम आपका तय ना किया। कहीं ना कहीं सिर्फ अपमान। और हमारे परिवार में और हमारे कई साथी कहते हैं कि अगर जहां सम्मान ना हो वहां अपमान नहीं होना।
Good evening and welcome. You're watching the News Hour Agenda. I'm Padmaja Joshi. Tomorrow, the District Court in Varanasi will make a simple decision which could answer a complex question. Will Hindu devotees be allowed to worship the Shivling that they claim has been discovered in the Vasukhana of the Gyanvapi mosque? Will they be granted access to the actual Shringar Gauri that they claim exists in the basement of the mosque? Will they be going ahead and worshipping all the different idols and Hindu motifs which have been borne out by the reports of the court commissioners? Today, arguments were heard from both the sides and the court reserved its judgment. But here's the thing. The Hindu devotees are asking that while the district court decides matter, they cannot wait to be granted their religious rights.
जनपद न्यायाधीश ने हमें सुना, रूल 711 पे बहस के लिए विपक्षी मुस्लिम पक्ष के अधिवक्ता ने अपनी बात रही, और आज कई पूरक प्रार्थना पत्र, जिसमें यहाँ के पूर्व महंत ने भी प्रार्थना, वहाँ पे पूजा, स्तवन, राग, भोग आरती का अधिकार मांगने का प्रार्थना पत्र दिया। और वर्शिप एक्ट की अभी बात तो नहीं आई है, वो कल ही सुना जाएगा। उसको माननीय न्यायाधीश महोदय ने कहा कि चूंकि फाइल आज हमारे कोर्ट में आई है तो इसका अध्ययन भी हम कर लेते हैं और कल इस पर निर्णय देंगे।
आज कोर्ट में सुप्रीम कोर्ट के आदेश का हवाला देते हुए मैंने ये कहा कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने 20/5/2022 के आदेश में तय कर दिया है कि हम लोगों की जो ऑर्डर 7 रूल 11 वाज की पोषणीयता पर जो दिया गया प्रार्थना पत्र है, उस पर पहले सुनवाई की जाए, और यही मैंडेट है सुप्रीम कोर्ट का। सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने ये तय कर दिया है कि ऑर्डर 7 रूल 11 की एप्लीकेशन पहले डिसाइड होगी।
So these are the arguments that took place. The Hindu side is saying that the survey that has been done by the Advocate Commissioners has, as it is shown, that the religious character of the Gyanvapi mosque is Hindu. The Supreme Court has accepted that the Worship Act does not stand in the way of determining religious character. So they say the district court should first decide whether the Gyanvapi compound indeed houses a temple or not, and if it does, then give us access to pray. However, the traces of a temple aren't just in the report of the Advocate Commissioners of 2022, almost a century ago. An affidavit filed by the British government said that there was never any bar on the entry of a non-Muslim in the Gyanvapi premises. The idols and temples, said the British government, that are in Gyanvapi exist for long before the advent of Mohammedan rule in India. The land in question was never stamped with the character of waqf. It was never dedicated to God by Muslims, and the Muslim side had no connection whatsoever with the land except that they were permitted to go to the mosque. Now this, let me again reiterate, is something that the British government submitted in court in 1936. Almost 100 years ago, they were absolutely clear that there are Hindu idols and that there is no Islamic religious character to Gyanvapi. But this is just one of the many pieces of evidence that are now being spoken of. The moot question, though, still remains. Till the time that the district court hearing takes place, can Hindu devotees be actually given their religious rights, or will they have to be ready to wait?
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 1, on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
Sanju Verma, national spokesperson of the BJP, joins me along with Tawseefur Rahman, political analyst, Huzaifa Amir Rashadi, leader of the Rashtriya Ulema Council, Kalimul Hafiz, president of AIMIM. But my first question is to Advocate Ashwini Upadhyay. Since you're also a lawyer, sir, how is it possible for Hindu devotees to say we want to go in and start worshipping? The case is sub judice. How can they start worship?
केस सब जुडिस है, लेकिन वहाँ सर्वे हो चुका है, सर्वे की रिपोर्ट आ चुकी है, सर्वे की रिपोर्ट में सारे सिंबल मिल चुके हैं और दुनिया में कहीं किसी भी मस्जिद में त्रिशूल नहीं होता, किसी भी मस्जिद में शिवलिंग नहीं होता, किसी भी मस्जिद में स्वास्तिक का चिन्ह नहीं होता, किसी भी मस्जिद में पान का निशान नहीं होता। ये इकलौती अगर मस्जिद है, अगर वो कह रहे ये मस्जिद है, तो मुझे लगता है फिर उनको ये एस्टेब्लिश करना पड़ेगा ऐसी कौन सी हदीस है या कौन सा कुरान में ऐसा कहां लिखा हुआ है कि जो मस्जिद बनाई जाएगी वहां स्वास्तिक का निशान होगा, या कोई ऐसी हदीस है जिसमें ये एस्टेब्लिश हो सके कि मस्जिद के अंदर कुरान क्या बोलते हैं पान का निशान होना चाहिए, त्रिशूल का निशान होना चाहिए,
शिवलिंग कंफर्म होगा।
मुझे लगता है मुस्लिम साइड के एक कानून है 1991 का 1991 के एक्ट के अलावा सुनिए बात सुन लीजिए,
तो आप ये हदीस में बाद में बात करिएगा, नहीं आप ये हदीस बाद में बात करिएगा, जैसे आप हमें बर्दाश्त करने के लिए
नहीं आप कब्जा
तो बर्दाश्त।
अरे भाई सुन लीजिए, सवाल हमसे ऐसे नहीं सवाल हमसे।
Just second, Mr. Tawseefur Rahman, you are also a lawyer. Ashwini Upadhyay is also a lawyer. Just a second, before you come in, let me ask a follow-up question. But Ashwini Upadhyay, आप कह रहे हैं कि रिपोर्ट आ चुकी है, बट हाँ एक सेकंड, रिपोर्ट आ चुकी है तो रिपोर्ट के बेसिस पे ही तो एक्सेस नहीं हो सकता। आप कह रहे हैं कि कोर्ट अभी डिसाइड कर ले रिपोर्ट के बेसिस पे और फिर आगे की सुनवाई करे। जस्ट सेकंड,
मैं इसे
अश्विनी उपाध्याय
एग्जैक्टली जब अगर उनको फ्राइडे को नमाज अलाउ किया जा सकता है तो डेली वहां जलाभिषेक भी अलाउ किया जा सकता है। तो कंप्लीट पूरा बंद कर दिया जाए, पूरा जो सराउंडिंग है उसको एएसआई को दे दिया जाए, एएसआई 6 महीने 3 महीने के अंदर सबकी टेस्टिंग कर ले। अदरवाइज अगर वहां पे प्रेयर अलाउ हो रही है, नमाज फ्राइडे की अलाउ हो रही है, तो मुझे लगता है फिर डेली पूजा के लिए दे देना चाहिए, पूजा भी चलती रहे।
ओके, तौसीफुर रहमान, योर ओपनिंग कमेंट्स एंड आई एम कमिंग टू यू मिस्टर कलीमुल हाफिज। अगर वहां पर नमाज की इजाजत है तो पूजा की भी इजाजत दे दीजिए, क्योंकि शिवलिंग तो है, रिपोर्ट कह रही है। एंड एक्चुअली व्हाट द पीपल हैव गॉन टू कोर्ट सेइंग इज कि भाई कोर्ट डिसाइड कर ले, बट आप प्रायोरिटी में डिसाइड कीजिए। आप प्रायोरिटी में डिसाइड कर लीजिए कि कम से कम गिव अस आवर रिलीजियस राइट्स एंड देन यू कैन हैव द रेस्ट ऑफ द हियरिंग. आप कम से कम एक्सेस दे दीजिए. तौसीफुर रहमान.
प्रायोरिटी मैं सर को जवाब दे रहा हूं. सर प्रायोरिटी तो हर चीज की थी. देयर वाज प्रायोरिटी ऑलवेज. There was always priority, whether it was Hindu or Muslim. There was a peace sanctuary going on. Unnecessary this all ASI came and छानबीन होगा कि वहां पर शिवलिंग निकल गया. सबसे पहले वहां पर वजू करना बंद करा दिया आप लोग ने. किसने बंद करवाया? अभी तक तो वहां पर फाउंटेन ही है. अभी शिवलिंग का वहां पर वर्डिक्ट नहीं दिया गया है कि वहां पर क्लियर हो गया है कि वहां शिवलिंग मिल गई है, पान मिल गया है, त्रिशूल मिल गया. उसकी छानबीन होगी. और अगर आप एक्सेस चाहते हैं, किस बुनियाद में आप एक्सेस चाहते हैं? आपने एक अच्छा भला एक हिस्टोरिक चीज को आपने बंद करवा दिया. उसके बाद आप कुतुब मीनार जाने वाले हैं, उसके बाद आप ताजमहल जाने वाले हैं.
तौसीफुर रहमान, nobody is saying कि कल को दरवाजा तोड़ के घुस जाएगा.
आप भारत में सारे मस्जिदों को तोड़वा दीजिए.
तोड़ाने के बाद आप बोलिए कि ये अभी डिस्ट्रिक्ट कोर्ट में केस जारी है. आप शुरू में डिसाइड कर लीजिए कि आपको सर्वे रिपोर्ट का क्या करना है. मिस्टर कलीमुल हाफिज.
कम्युनल हार्मनी ऑफ इंडिया.
सर कम्युनल हार्मनी तो इज अ टू साइडेड थिंग ना. इट्स अ टू वे स्ट्रीट.
मैडम
हार्मनी एक तरीके से नहीं होती है. हार्मनी दोनों तरफ से होती है.
मैडम हम यहाँ पे
एक आदमी हार्मनी करता रहे और दूसरा आदमी दरवाजा बंद करते तो नहीं होता ना हार्मनी.
कर रहे हैं
कलीमुल हाफिज साहब, लेट मी आस्क यू अ क्वेश्चन फर्स्ट. कलीमुल हाफिज साहब, मेरा आपसे सवाल ये है कि अभी पिटिशनर्स हैं जो कह रहे हैं कि कोर्ट बस एक चीज पे डिसाइड कर ले. ये सर्वे की रिपोर्ट है. आप सर्वे की रिपोर्ट देख करके बस इतना फैसला कर लीजिए कि क्या वहां पर शिवलिंग है या नहीं है. उसके बाद आगे की कार्रवाई कीजिए. उस रिपोर्ट को बैक बर्नर पे क्यों डाला जा रहा है? कलीमुल हाफिज साहब, क्या इसको पहले एक डिसीजन हो जाना चाहिए कि ये सर्वे की रिपोर्ट सही है या बकवास है?
देखिए आप लर्नेड जर्नलिस्ट हैं, लेकिन बात आप जो कह रही हैं वो गलत कह रही हैं. यानी केस है, ये इस बात पे सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने केस ट्रांसफर किया है डिस्ट्रिक्ट जज को ये तय करने के लिए कि ये मेंटेनेबल है या नहीं है. यानी क्या यहाँ पे 91 एक्ट का उल्लंघन हो रहा है, नहीं हो रहा है. तो पहले ये डिसीजन आएगा कि ये जो सारी जो लोअर कोर्ट ने दिया है ये सब कुछ प्रक्रिया गलत थी या सही थी. पहली बात, जिस पे वो डिसीजन कल सुनाएंगे, आज उन्होंने रिजर्व कर लिया है. दूसरे पॉइंट पर आप आइए कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने यह भी कहा है कि अगर आपको डिस्ट्रिक्ट कोर्ट से रिलीफ नहीं मिलता है तो आप हाई कोर्ट जा सकते हैं. फिर हम हाई कोर्ट जाएंगे, फिर हाई कोर्ट से भी नहीं मिलता है तो फिर सुप्रीम कोर्ट आएंगे, और एसएलपी भी हमारी पेंडिंग है जो आफ्टर वेकेशन सुनी जाएगी. तो अभी पहला सवाल ये है कि ये जो 37 में डिसीजन आया कि वो हनफी वक्फ की अराजी है और मस्जिद है और वहां उर्स करने की भी इजाजत है. दूसरा, जो 91 में इन्होंने टाइटल सूट डाला और जो हाई कोर्ट ने उसको 93 में स्टे कर दिया, यानी ये दो डिसीजन से ये बिल्कुल क्लियर है कि वो एक मस्जिद है.
नहीं सर,
मस्जिद पे
1936 के मुद्दे पे आप एकदम गलत बोल रहे हैं. और मैं 1936 के एफिडेविट पे तो थोड़ी सी देर में आऊंगी.
बताइए क्या गलत बोल रहा हूं.
नहीं, अभी 1936 पे थोड़ी देर में जाएंगे ना. अभी 2022 पे रहते हैं. 2022 की बात ये है.
37 का डिसीजन है वो
सर.
37 का डिसीजन
उस पे मैं आती हूँ ना. अभी रुक जाइए. 1936 पे हम थोड़ी सी देर बाद जाएंगे, 2-3 मिनट बाद. अभी 2022 की बात करते हैं. संजू वर्मा, रिस्पॉन्ड टू दिस. अभी ये सुप्रीम कोर्ट तक अपील करेंगे और तब तक आपको कोई हक नहीं है कि आप कहें कि हमें ये एक्सेस दे दो और वो एक्सेस दे दो. तब तक आप बैठिए.
You know, Padmaja, as you said, tomorrow is a very important day. The Varanasi District Court will not only determine whether till the final order on this is out, Hindus have the right in the interim to go and offer prayers and conduct worship as they used to in 1992 or not. The other very important thing that the district court tomorrow will also hear is Order 7, Rule 11, because the Muslim side has been going on chest thumping that as per Order 7, Rule 11, the entire petition of the Hindu side, which is the plaintiff in this case,
मुस्लिम साइड क्या होता है? हिंदुस्तान में मुसलमान रहते हैं, साइड की क्या बात है?
Bad in law and should not be admissible. Forget even about discussing the merits of the case. So my simple argument to the Muslim side and the other families who represent the Muslim side is this. The fact of the matter is, if you have recourse to the Allahabad High Court, even the Hindu side on maintainability of the petition has recourse to the Allahabad High Court, which will listen to the maintainability of the petition on 6th of July, even before the Supreme Court listens to this and decides on the matter. But the more important point is this,
केस पर आइए ना मैडम, केस पर आइए। आप इसे छोड़िए, अभी जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने ऑर्डर किया है उस पर आइए।
We have to prove that राम जन्मभूमि राम का जन्म स्थान है, कृष्ण जन्मभूमि।
मैं बताती हूँ इनका कॉन्टेक्स्ट क्या है सर। कलीमुल हाफिज साहब ये एक इंपॉर्टेंट बात कह रही हैं, और वो इसलिए क्योंकि अगर ये बात कर रही है राम जन्मभूमि, कृष्ण जन्मभूमि, बेथलेहेम की, प्लेसेस ऑफ वर्शिप एक्ट एंड प्लेस ऑफ प्रेयर, जो अश्विनी उपाध्याय जी ने भी जो कोर्ट में अर्जी डाली है, छोटा सा नुआंस है। प्लेस ऑफ वर्शिप वो होती है जहां पर सपोज जन्मभूमि, आप उसी को वर्शिप कर सकते हैं, पर प्रेयर कहीं भी हो सकती है। प्रेयर हम घर पे भी कर सकते हैं,
नहीं, मैं
पर जन्मभूमि एक ही होती है।
मैं इस पे बता दूं।
हाँ जी बताइए।
देखिए मैं बता दूं आपको, नहीं इस नुआंस पे जरा आपको भी हंसी आएगी। जब ये एक्ट बन रहा था पार्लियामेंट में, तो बीजेपी की तरफ से उमा भारती खड़ी हुई और बोली, और उन्होंने बाकायदा पार्लियामेंट की डिबेट में, रिकॉर्ड में मौजूद है, उन्होंने कहा कि इस एक्ट में मेरी ज्ञानवापी मस्जिद का क्या होगा, वो केस इसमें डिस्कस नहीं होगा। तो ये इस बात को बीजेपी मोशन हार गई, वॉकआउट किया था, सदन ने सर्वसम्मति से उसे पास कर दिया। तो ज्ञानवापी, हाँ
ये एक्ट पास हुआ, बीजेपी ने वॉकआउट किया था।
इस एक्ट के अंडर में आती है एक बात,
ये पूरा झूठ
जी हाँ। और दूसरी बात, एक पॉइंट और,
एक सेकंड, वन एट अ टाइम, अश्विनी उपाध्याय विल रिस्पॉन्ड टू इट, बट लेट हिम फिनिश। यस,
पढ़ेंगे इस एक्ट के, नहीं मैडम पद्मा जी, जब एक्ट को पढ़ेंगे तो पहले ही जो सेक्शन है उसमें जहाँ डेफिनेशन डिफाइन की है, उस डेफिनेशन में बाकायदा लिखा है इसमें मस्जिद, गुरुद्वारा, गिरजाघर और भी कोई रिलीजियस जो पब्लिक रिलीजियस प्लेस है वो भी आता है। आप मेरी बात सुन रही है? मैं
आपकी बात सुन रही है, एक-एक करके प्लीज। कैन वी प्लीज हैव कलीमुल हाफिज एंड अश्विनी उपाध्याय ओनली स्पीकिंग। कलीमुल हाफिज पहले बोलेंगे, उसके बाद अश्विनी उपाध्याय रिस्पॉन्ड करेंगे। हाँ बोलिए।
हाँ ठीक जी। देखिए मैडम, जो ये एक्ट है उसमें जहां डेफिनेशन डिफाइन की है उसमें क्लियर कट लिखा है कि इस एक्ट के अंदर मंदिर, मस्जिद, गुरुद्वारा, गिरजाघर या कोई और पब्लिक रिलीजियस जो भी टेंपल जो बिल्डिंग है वो इसमें आएगी। तो एक तो डेफिनेशन क्लियर है। तो ये तो नेशनल टीवी पे बैठ के अपना मजाक बनवा रहे हैं। ये इनका लेवल है, ये अपने आप को सुप्रीम कोर्ट का वकील कहते हैं। इन्होंने एक्ट की डेफिनेशन तक नहीं पढ़ी और ये गुमराह कर रहे हैं पूरे देश को। दूसरे नंबर पे आप आइए जी।
ठीक है, हो गई बात। सुनो, अब जवाब सुनो। अब जवाब सुनो।
आपने मैडम
ऐसा है, आपने तो वकालत किया नहीं है
कि बेथलेहम और उसकी बात।
अच्छा ओके, लेट अश्विनी उपाध्याय रिस्पॉन्ड। आप अपना दूसरा पॉइंट थोड़ी देर जल्दी से रिवाइज कर लीजिए। अश्विनी उपाध्याय पहले पॉइंट को रिस्पॉन्ड कर रहे हैं। हाँ
अच्छा ठीक है, पहले कर लिया, मैं दूसरा पे बात।
आपने तो वकालत पढ़ी नहीं है। किसी दिन ओवैसी को, हाँ किसी दिन ओवैसी को बुलाइए जो उन्होंने खुद वकालत किया है। मैं ओवैसी को चैलेंज करता हूं आज टाइम्स नाउ पे। पद्मजा जी, एक दिन ओवैसी को बुलाइए, मैं ओवैसी को इस्लामिक लॉ, हिंदू लॉ और प्लेसेस ऑफ वर्शिप तीनों समझाऊंगा।
पढ़ के सुना रहा हूं, और जवाब दे पाए आपको नेशनल चैनल पे।
सार्वजनिक जीवन
पद्मजा जी ये माफी मांगेंगे अश्विनी उपाध्याय।
छोड़िए, आपको
माफी मांगेंगे, मैं डेफिनेशन पढ़ के सुना रहा हूं।
अरे सर, यहाँ पे डेफिनेशन पे डिबेट नहीं हो रही। एक सेकंड, लेट मी जस्ट गेट दिस बैक ऑन ट्रैक। आज क्वेश्चन बहुत सिंपल है कलीमुल हाफिज साहब। हम एक 91 के एक्ट की डेफिनेशन को यहाँ पे चेंज नहीं कर सकते। सिंपल सा क्वेश्चन ये है दैट टिल द टाइम द हियरिंग इज ऑन, कैन द डेवोटीज आफ्टर द रिलीजियस कैरेक्टर बीइंग डिटरमिन्ड गेट एक्सेस। सिंपल सी बात है कि यहाँ 5 महिलाएं हैं, वो कह रही हैं कि अगर वहां शिवलिंग मौजूद है तो कोर्ट हमें इतना हक दे दे, अगर वहां नमाज हो रही है तो हमारी पूजा भी चले। सिंपल सी बात है। और आपका क्या लॉजिक है अश्विनी उपाध्याय फॉर सेइंग दैट ये हो सकता है? किस लॉजिक से, किस लॉ से, किस डिग्री से ये हो सकता है अश्विनी उपाध्याय?
इनके पास पद्मजा जी, पहली बात तो इनके पास 91 के एक्ट के अलावा और कोई लॉजिक नहीं है। और अब या तो ये कहें औरंगजेब झूठा, उसका छोटा भाई झूठा, उसका सेनापति झूठा, सारे इतिहासकार झूठे, सब चिल्ला चिल्ला के कह रहे हो। आज तो इरफान हबीब ने भी कह दिया कि हाँ उसको मंदिर तोड़ा गया। जब मंदिर तोड़ा गया, अब इनके पास केवल एक ग्राउंड बचा है 1991 का एक्ट, जो खुद ही चैलेंज हो चुका है, जिसका नाम पूजा स्थल कानून है। मैं आप बड़ी छोटी सी बात कह रहा हूं, महिला आयोग महिला के लिए बनता है, पुरुषों के लिए नहीं। ये पूजा स्थल कानून है, पूजा स्थल के लिए बना हुआ है, इबादतगाह के लिए नहीं। जैसे सड़क पे नमाज पढ़ने से सड़क मस्जिद नहीं हो जाती, रेलवे स्टेशन पर नमाज पढ़ने से रेलवे स्टेशन मस्जिद नहीं हो जाती, ऐसे मंदिर में नमाज पढ़ने से मंदिर मस्जिद नहीं होता। वंस ए टेम्पल ऑलवेज ए टेम्पल। मंदिर का कैरेक्टर कभी नहीं बदलता जब तक कि वहां मूर्ति का विसर्जन नहीं होता। मंदिर का गुंबद तोड़ देने से, मंदिर की दीवार गिरा देने से, मंदिर में नमाज पढ़ लेने से मंदिर का कैरेक्टर कभी नहीं बदलता।
और अगर मंदिर का कैरेक्टर है, देन हुजैफा आमिर रशादी, अगर मंदिर का कैरेक्टर है तो उस मंदिर को मंदिर की पूजा मिलनी चाहिए कि नहीं मिलनी चाहिए? नाउ लेट मी ब्रिंग इन द 1936 एफिडेविट, क्योंकि हम मंदिर के कैरेक्टर की बात कर रहे हैं और यहां पे ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट ने कहा था, एंड आई कोट, in paragraph number 11 it is admitted that idols and the temple which stand there exist since long before the advent of Mohammedan rule in India. जिसका मतलब है कि मोहम्मदन रूल आने से बहुत पहले से हिंदू देवी देवताओं की मूर्तियां ज्ञानवापी में मौजूद थी. The land in question was never stamped with the character of waqf. It was never dedicated to God, nor could it have been dedicated, and God has no proprietary interest. The plaintiffs and other Muslims have no connection whatsoever with the land from the beginning, except that Muslims were permitted to go to the mosque. The British government said Muslims had no connection, Huzaifa Amir Rashadi, with Gyanvapi. कुछ लेना देना नहीं है, जबकि हिंदू देवी देवताओं के वहां पर टेंपल बहुत पहले से था. तो अगर कैरेक्टर मंदिर का है तो क्या मंदिर की पूजा भी वहां पर कोर्ट को अलाउ करनी चाहिए?
That we should not wait for the Supreme Court.
No, definitely wait. All that the devotees are saying, तौसीफुर रहमान, is आप हमारा मैटर डिसाइड कर दो, हमें अब पूजा अभी करनी है. कोई ये नहीं कह रहा कि हम कल घुस जाएंगे वहां पे.
फिर गंगा जमुनी तहजीब कहां जाएगी?
At one point,
तौसीफुर रहमान, ओके, तौसीफुर रहमान, तौसीफुर रहमान as a more government voice. हाँ, बताइए तौसीफुर रहमान.
The Muslims should get access for 5 times. No. The Muslims should get 5 times prayer access. प्लस जुमा प्लस तहज्जुद एज वेल, एंड द हिंदू शुड गेट द एक्सेस एज वेल. अगर दिल इतना बड़ा करने का शौक है संजू वर्मा को, जैसे वो कह रही थी, तो हटाइए ना ये केस. जैसे जिंदगी भर चलते हुए वैसे छोड़ दीजिए. वहां पर पूजा भी होगा, वहां पर नमाज भी पढ़ी जाएगी.
पर वहां पूजा पूरे कंपाउंड में नहीं हो रही ना तौसीफुर रहमान. पूजा पूरे कंपाउंड में नहीं हो रही. पूजा बैरिकेड जो लगे हैं उसके बाहर एक श्रृंगार गौरी है, वहां पूजा होती है.
करवाइए ना.
आप एडवोकेट करते हैं, दैट्स ग्रेट.
क्यों नहीं हो रही है?
आप सुलह करवाइए ना.
तक मत करिए.
आप जैसे लेवल माइंडेड लोग नहीं है, क्योंकि एक्सेस नहीं दी जा रही है. इन फैक्ट you'd be interested to know that the petitioners have said in court कि हमारे को रोका जाता है even to get access to श्रृंगार गौरी.
People like Sanju Verma wanted to go court.
संजू वर्मा, here you have तौसीफुर रहमान ready for a compromise. He is saying कि आप पूजा भी होने दीजिए, आप नमाज भी पढ़ने दीजिए. You should actually draft him as a mediator. तौसीफुर रहमान, करा दीजिए मीडिएशन, केस वापस हो जाए.
I refuse to speak if you are not giving me a chance to speak.
मैं बोल रहा हूं, करने दीजिए.
संजू वर्मा
कर रहा है. कौन मुसलमान खड़ा होकर
I will not
कि वहां पर पूजा नहीं होनी चाहिए?
time. I waited for 23 minutes.
संजू वर्मा,
yes, thank you. फर्स्ट एंड फॉरमोस्ट, संजू वर्मा का दिल कितना बड़ा है उस पर देश का संविधान और कानून नहीं चलता है. देश का संविधान और कानून जो B.R. अम्बेडकर जी ने कानून बनाया था, संविधान बनाया था, उसके हिसाब से चलेगा. पहली बात. दूसरी बात,
उसको भी
तकलीफ हो रही है कि हिंदू कह रहे हैं हमको पूजा करनी है. यू आर द सेम कम्युनिटी विच फॉर सेंचुरी said that Tipu Sultan is a great warrior, forgetting that he captured 2 lakh Madhikaris and he converted 90,000 and butchered and killed another 90,000 Kodavas. You are the same community which says that औरंगजेब हमारे लिए हीरो है. आपके अकबरुद्दीन ओवैसी औरंगजेब की मजार पर जाकर प्रणाम करते हैं. He is paying obeisance, forgetting that.
No, what's your point? If people say we are ready for an agreement, would you step up? If there are people within Anjuman Intizamiya who say we are willing to have both puja and namaz, would you step up?
Let me finish. I have not been able to finish. Can I please finish, Padmaja?
Yes,
what
finish.
Is the problem? I want to say one other very important thing. You know, these people keep talking of Places of Worship Act 1991. These people do not want to believe in the Ancient Monument and Archaeological Survey Act of 1951 and 1958. Now there is a view that, you know, Gyanvapi comes under the Ancient Monument Act of 1958, by virtue of which Places of Worship Act 1991 ceases to apply to Gyanvapi. तो Places of Worship Act की दुहाई जो आप लोग बार बार दे रहे हो, ये आप पर उल्टा पड़ Supreme Court has clearly said nothing bars the lower court from determining the character of the place. That one line basically completely turns the entire Gyanvapi argument, because
why do you want the access? Why do you want the access now? Wait for the Supreme Court. If you have so much trust in Supreme Court like us, like we do trust.
Tawseefur Rahman, why do you want the access? Tawseefur Rahman, why should people want the access? They have the right to go to court, right?
No.
They have the right to ask the district court, give us access.
Why? Exactly, right. Go to the court.
They have gone to the court.
Exactly.
They are saying that in court. That's the simple point.
Then just wait. Why do you want the access right now? तो मत लीजिए ना एक्सेस. आप क्यों मांग रहे हो एक्सेस? मत लो एक्सेस. एक काम करो, वहां पर या तो कर्फ्यू लगा दो या तो किसी को कुछ मत करने दो. As simple as that.
अश्विनी उपाध्याय.
As simple as that.
अश्विनी उपाध्याय, इतनी जल्दी क्या है एक्सेस की?
ना मस्जिद में नमाज पढ़ी जाएगी ना वहां पर मंदिर की पूजा होगी.
अश्विनी उपाध्याय, इतनी जल्दी क्या है एक्सेस की?
पद्मजा, मैं पहली तो ये सोच रहा था, इसमें से कोई एक व्यक्ति ये बोलेगा कि जिसका जिक्र कुरान हदीस में है वो मुस्लिम्स ले ले, और जिसका जिक्र वेद पुराण गीता रामायण रामचरितमानस में वो हिंदुओं को दे दिया जाए. ये बात करते तो मुझे लगता, इससे लगता कि वास्तव में गंगा जमनी तहजीब है, भाईचारा है. अरे अगर सुप्रीम कोर्ट से लड़के मिल जाएगा तो किसी का एहसान है क्या?
अभी भी है.
अगर सुप्रीम कोर्ट से अगर हमें अपने हिंदुओं के लिए जिनका जिक्र हमारे वेद पुराण में है, अगर वो सुप्रीम कोर्ट से लड़के मिलेगा 50 साल के बाद, कोई एहसान किसी का मिलेगा क्या? कोई एहसान है? और एक बात और, दुनिया में भारत इकलौता ऐसा देश है जहां की मेजॉरिटी कम्युनिटी अपने धार्मिक स्थानों के लिए कोर्ट जाती है. पाकिस्तान की मेजॉरिटी कम्युनिटी अपने धार्मिक स्थान के लिए कोर्ट नहीं जाती है.
कोई लड़ने नहीं गया. आप लोग अकेले लड़ रहे हैं बैठ के टीवी पे. मैं तो बोल रहा हूं कि दिल बड़ा करिए और सब कुछ.
No, that is not the case, Tawseefur Rahman. So here is what happened in court. You are saying na कि let courts decide. Courts will decide, but the problem is today when you had one side argue कि sir, you can continue with your hearing, just listen to our petition, give us these limited rights. Abhaynath Yadav said, nahi, you don't even consider their petition about the survey, about whether they should be given access. आप पहले सिर्फ places of worship act की maintainability के ऊपर आप comment कीजिए. Why? Let people, in the interest of harmony, in the interest of everyone coexisting, let people have their plea heard. Kalimul Hafiz. इतनी सी बात है. बस कह रहे हैं कि आप बस हमारी बात सुन लीजिए, आगे आपकी प्रक्रिया चलती रहेगी.
मैडम, ये जो हुक्म है कि आप मेंटेनेबिलिटी चेक करिए, ये सुप्रीम कोर्ट का हुक्म है, ये किसी और का हुक्म नहीं है. तो ये तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट की बात माननी पड़ेगी लोअर कोर्ट को या डिस्ट्रिक्ट कोर्ट को, जिसमें मेरा और आपका कोई इंटरवेंशन नहीं है. दूसरी बात, एक बीजेपी स्पोक्स पर्सन ने कही कि औरंगजेब की कब्र पे फूल चढ़ाए. मैं इसका जवाब देना चाहता हूं कि आपके टाइम्स ऑफ इंडिया ने रिपोर्ट किया 2017 में औरंगजेब की औलाद बहादुर शाह जफर की कब्र पे मोदी जी ने फूल चढ़ाए. वो रंगून में जाके क्यों चढ़ाए उन्होंने? जब मोदी जी फूल चढ़ा सकते हैं एक मुगल शासक के खबर पे, तो हमारा नेता क्यों नहीं फूल चढ़ा सकता? ये जरा बीजेपी स्पोक्स पर्सन से पूछ लीजिए. दूसरी बात ये, और ये रिपोर्ट भी टाइम्स ऑफ इंडिया ने किया है, आप ही का अखबार है वो जोंगोन जो है. आप दूसरे उससे आइए.
औरंगजेब तो नरबख्शी था.
बिल्कुल. अरे वो भी मुगल था, वो औलाद है औरंगजेब की,
आतंकवादी था.
औरंगजेब की औलाद है वो, औरंगजेब की औलाद है वो बहादुर शाह जफर. आप जिसको आक्रांता बताते हो उसके औलाद है भाई. आप बताओ ना, औलाद अच्छी हो जाएगी.
कलीमुल हाफिज साहब, आप तो अलग ही बात कर रहे हैं. अब पाब्लो एस्कोबार ड्रग लॉर्ड था, इसका मतलब ये थोड़ा कि उसके तीनों बच्चों को गोली मार देंगे. मतलब ये तो कोई भी लॉजिक नहीं हुआ ना. जो क्राइम करेगा या जिसका प्रॉब्लम होगा, जिसने जो एक्शन लिया है उसके खिलाफ एक्शन होगा ना.
आक्रांता नजर नहीं आते.
औरंगजेब का छोटा.
अच्छा, लेट्स स्टिक टू द टॉपिक. लेट्स स्टिक टू द टॉपिक.
औरंगजेब का छोटा भाई सही था.
मुगल आक्रांता नजर आते हैं, तो फिर मुगल रूलर के
आतंकवादी वही था जालिम, वही था जल्लाद, वही था जल्लाद, वही था बलात्कारी,
क्यों फूल चढ़ाए उन्होंने?
कराता था.
अब आता हूं मैं दूसरे नंबर पे.
आप आज मुस्लिम बने उसी कारण.
अब दूसरे नंबर पे
कलीमुल हाफिज साहब, प्लीज रिस्पॉन्ड. एक सेकंड. नहीं. बिफोर वी गो ऑफ इन डिफरेंट डायरेक्शंस, आपसे अश्विनी उपाध्याय का सीधा सवाल है कि आप अगर सच में कोएग्जिस्टेंस की बात कर रहे हैं तो लेट पीपल कोएग्जिस्ट, लेट पीपल प्रे टुगेदर. तौसीफुर रहमान भी ये मानने को तैयार हैं कि हाँ ठीक है, अगर 1936 से लेकर के 2022 तक कुछ रिलीजियस ट्रेसेस मिल रहे हैं तो आप उनको रिस्पेक्ट कीजिए थ्रू कोर्ट। डोंट ट्राई एंड डिले द प्रोसेस इन कोर्ट। सुनने दीजिए सर्वे की बात को।
मैडम, हाँ, अब मैं बताता हूँ, रेस्पेक्ट की बात बताता हूँ।
हाँ,
अब मैं बताता हूँ रेस्पेक्ट की बात। देखिए 1968 में जब मथुरा कृष्ण जन्म स्थान में और ईदगाह में जब कॉन्फ्लिक्ट हुआ तो उन्होंने आपस में बैठ के उसको तय कर लिया, बाकायदा कोर्ट की परमिशन से वो एग्रीमेंट हुआ और ये तय हो गया। बहुत सारी ईदगाह की मस्जिद की जगह जो है मंदिर को दे दी गई और वहां पे एक आलीशान मंदिर खड़ा हुआ है, उनके परनाले भी चेंज कर लिए गए, बाकायदा वो एक एग्रीमेंट हो गया। उसके 55 साल बाद फिर ये बीजेपी और आरएसएस ने देश में हिंदू मुस्लिम भाईचारे को तोड़ने के लिए फिर दोबारा से उस मसले को उठवा दिया। इसी तरीके से राम जन्मभूमि और बाबरी मस्जिद का हुआ,
वो भी कोर्ट से ही हो रहा है ना।
कोर्ट ने ये बात कही कि ये जो है कोई
मक्का
तो कोर्ट की बात हमने वो भी मान ली। सवाल ये, अब कोर्ट की बात मानने में क्या एतराज है? कोर्ट मेंटेनेबिलिटी चेक कर रहा है, चेक करने।
अश्विनी उपाध्याय,
अगर कोर्ट डिसाइड कर देगा मेंटेनेबल है तो हम उसको चैलेंज करेंगे।
एक सेकंड, आपके लिए सवाल है अश्विनी उपाध्याय का।
भैया सुन लीजिए,
अश्विनी उपाध्याय
पूछ रहा हूँ,
लेकिन ये जो बीजेपी और आरएसएस है,
मैं पूछ रहा हूँ,
भाईचारे को तार-तार कर रहे हैं।
मैं पूछ रहा हूँ मक्का मदीना के बारे में जाके मैं एग्रीमेंट कर लूं किसी आदमी से, मक्का मदीना के बारे में जा किसी एग्रीमेंट कर लूं, आप मान लोगे कि हाँ भाई ये जन्मस्थान यहाँ नहीं हुआ था?
मक्का मदीने में
सवाल नहीं खड़ा होगा कि उनका जन्मस्थान कहाँ था?
मदीने में आपका भारतीय संविधान लागू होता है,
ईसा मसीह के जन्मस्थान पर नहीं होगा। केवल और केवल भारत, केवल और केवल हिंदुओं के, आप क्या बात कर रहे हैं? आप मुझे बताओ, मैं पूछ रहा हूँ किस कुरान किस हदीस में ईदगाह का जिक्र है? आप बताओ, किस कुरान किस हदीस में आपके ज्ञानवापी का जिक्र है? अरे ज्ञानवापी, अगर वास्तव में ज्ञानवापी मस्जिद होता उसका नाम होना चाहिए था तालीम का कुआं, उसका नाम होना चाहिए था तालीम का कुआं, उसका नाम ज्ञानवापी होना नहीं चाहिए था।
ओके, तौसीफुर रहमान, तौसीफुर रहमान,
बता रहा हूँ आपको कहाँ जिक्र है, मैं जिक्र बता रहा हूँ।
तौसीफुर रहमान,
नहीं मैं रेस्पॉन्ड करूँ मैडम?
पहले तो पद्मजा, जब अगर पहले तो पद्मजा अभी सर ने कह दिया कि मक्का मस्जिद के ऊपर हम चले जाएंगे तो वहां पर कोई पिटीशन कर देंगे। पहले तो आपकी औकात भी नहीं वो करने की। रही बात दिल बड़ा करने की, तो करिए ना दिल बड़ा। आप बोलिए ना कि आप सुप्रीम कोर्ट नहीं जाना चाहते, ये वापस ले लीजिए अपने आप को बोलकर, अपने लोगों को बोलकर, और बनाइए मंदिर और मस्जिद की डिवाइड करके जगह। अरे बनाइए डिवाइड करके जगह। ईदगाह कुरान में अगर मेंशन हो जाएगा तो कहां से हर मस्जिद और मंदिर क्या गीता में लिखा है क्या? हर मंदिर और मस्जिद गीता में लिखा है या कुरान में लिखा है? आप औकात की बात कर रहे हैं कि आप मक्का जाएंगे, आपकी औकात है, आप मक्का मदीना जाएंगे पिटीशन करने के लिए? आपका दिल इतना छोटा है कि आप वहां शिवलिंग को आपने फाउंटेन बना दिया, फाउंटेन को शिवलिंग बना दिया। व्हाट आर यू सेइंग सर?
गीता रामायण में
यू आर नॉट टॉकिंग लॉजिक सर। आप सर, इट्स अ ग्रेट थिंग, इट्स अ ग्रेट थिंग, इट्स अ ग्रेट थिंग दैट वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट generosity over here. However, harmony and generosity is always a two-way street. Nobody is even saying give up the rights on anything. All that is being argued here is that should the court first allow a hearing on the religious rights of people before a long drawn legal process is undertaken. That is the bottom line. However, we will hear the final word on that very soon at 2 p.m. tomorrow. For now, thank you very much, all gentlemen, for having joined me. All right, a hornet's nest has been kicked quite literally by Assam Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma, who raised that eternal question: are madrasas stopping meritorious Muslim children from becoming doctors and engineers? Is an education devoid of science and math holding them back from a bright future? Is it a violation of children's right to deprive them of modern education? As per the Chief Minister of Assam, it is. Himanta Biswa Sarma, never one to shy away from a controversy, contended that the word madrasa itself should cease to exist. For him, this term is synonymous for depriving children of their right to choose their future by pushing them into the dark ages.
भाई साहब, ये माद्रासा शब्द ही विलुप्त हो जाना चाहिए। जब तक ये माद्रासा दिमाग में घूमते रहेगा तब तक बच्चा कभी डॉक्टर इंजीनियर नहीं बन सकता है। अगर बच्चा को आप स्कूल में जाने का समय आप पूछ लेता है कि बेटा तुम मद्रासा जा रहा है, तुम जुनाब बनेगा, इस रास्ते से तुम डॉक्टर नहीं बनेगा, तो कोई बच्चा मद्रासा नहीं जाएगा। मदरसा में तो दाखिल किया जाता है वायलेटिंग ह्यूमन राइट्स, किसलिए वो रास्ता बंद हो जाता है। तो आप जरूर कुरान पढ़ाइए, उसमें कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, लेकिन सबसे ज्यादा पढ़ाइए साइंस, मैथ्स, बायोलॉजी, बोटानी, जूलॉजी। तो इसीलिए मदरसा सब विलुप्त हो जाना चाहिए, नॉर्मल एजुकेशन होना चाहिए, और घर में आप खूब आपका धर्म पोथी पढ़ाइए, पूरा 2 to 3 घंटा धर्म पोथी पढ़ाइए, लेकिन स्कूल में ऐसा ही शिक्षा दीजिए जो शिक्षा से आपका बेटा डॉक्टर और इंजीनियर बन सकता है, प्रोफेसर बन सकता है, साइंटिस्ट बन सकता है। जो आप बोल रहे हैं मुसलमान लोग कुरान कंठस्थ कर रहा है तो इसलिए उनमें बहुत ज्यादा मेरिट होता है, ये सारा मुसलमान भाई हिंदू था, कोई एज ए मुसलमान ये धरती में नहीं आया, भारत का धरती में सब हिंदू ही था।
Now, the opposition, but naturally, has said that this attack on madrasas is born out of prejudice and Islamophobia. Listen in.
इस वक्त कंपटीशन चल रहा है कि हमें गुजरात मॉडल हिंदुस्तान को बनाना है, हमें उत्तर प्रदेश मॉडल बनाना है। उनका इस वक्त मुकाबला हो रहा है एक दूसरे के साथ कि कौन ज्यादा से ज्यादा मुसलमानों को तंग करेगा, मुसलमानों को खुदा ना खास्ता नेस्त नाबूद करने में पहल करेगा।
They want to destroy whatever language, culture, faith, practice, way of life of Muslim. Every aspect of Muslims are being attacked by the RSS people.
He's a chief minister, he is free to take that decision. But he has no respect for the Constitution of India. More than that I will not comment, because he is a new convert to BJP and he talks all sort of things to please, like sycophants, which I have nothing to say about it.
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 2 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
Sanju Verma continues with us. We are joined by Anurag Bhadoria, National Spokesperson of Samajwadi Party, Syed Aslam, Spokesperson of the JDS, and Tauseefur Rahman will also be joining us. I want to start by asking you, Sanju Verma, is there a better way? Instead of doing away with anything, why not modernize?
I think, education falls in the concurrent list, and it is the prerogative of the central government and the respective state governments to come to a consensus. Number one. Point number 2, I think Hemanta Biswa Sarma actually nailed it without mincing any words. We all know that madrasas are places of radicalization. They don't teach you history, geography, maths, physics, chemistry, biology there.
One by one, please. Yes,
they teach you the principles of Hadith. They teach you how to interpret Quran. And I found some interesting data before I came on your debate. There are more than 40 to 50,000 madrasas in the country and about 24,000 odd recognized and registered madrasas, out of which 10,000 madrasas in Uttar Pradesh alone. And how many children study in these madrasas? 18 lakh students study in madrasas in Uttar Pradesh. But in the last 3 years, there has been a trend which has been found by the Yogi government. More and more Muslim young children are actually joining Vidya Bharati and Shishu Mandir schools, which have seen a 35% jump in enrollment because they are fed up of the radicalization of impressionable minds within the framework of madrasas, which are supposedly places of learning but are far from it in reality. In fact, I want to tell you that just last year, 12,000 new students have joined Vidya Bharati and Shishu Mandir schools, which are run by RSS and its affiliates.
Okay. Anurag Bhadoria, Muslim बच्चे खुद से चूज कर रहे हैं कि हम नहीं जाएंगे मदरसों में. Then the intention is clear to say कि आप over time better educational institutions दें और मदरसे खत्म कर दें.
देखिए, मुझे लगता है कि हेमंत बिश्व शर्मा को उन्होंने जितनी बार अगर 1 से 1 मिनट का उन्होंने भाषण दिया, तो उनके भाषण में मदरसा, मुस्लिम मदरसा और भारतीय जनता पार्टी के नेताओं के अगर उनके लायक से उनके शब्द निकाल दिए जाए, मदरसा, मुस्लिम, पाकिस्तान, कुरान, इस्लाम निकाल दीजिए, तो वो 10 मिनट नहीं बोल सकते, 5 मिनट ज्यादा नहीं बोल पाएंगे. देश की असली मूल समस्याओं पे चर्चा करना ही नहीं चाहते, बोलना ही नहीं चाहते. ये हमारा आपका ध्यान भटका रहे हैं असली मुद्दों से. अरे मदरसा क्या एक मानक बना है उत्तर प्रदेश के अंदर में? अरे मैं आपके बीच में नहीं बोला, मैं आपके बीच में नहीं बोला, थोड़ा सभ्यता सीखिए।
बट अनुराग जी प्लीज मुद्दे पे आइए ना, आप हमेशा शुरुआत करेंगे।
मुद्दे पे आ रहा हूँ,
हाँ मुद्दे पे बात कीजिए।
मैं मुद्दे पे आ रहा हूँ।
मॉडर्नाइजेशन होना चाहिए एंड ओवर टाइम मॉडर्नाइजेशन ऐसा होना चाहिए कि सब बच्चे स्कूल जाए।
तो बोल दीजिए, आपको नहीं सुना।
चलिए सब बच्चे स्कूल जाए,
वही तो बोलने वाला हूँ मैं।
बोलिए
मैंने कहा उत्तर प्रदेश के अंदर में एक मानक तय किया, पैरामीटर उन्होंने तय किया कि ये चीज अगर होगी तो मदरसे के अंदर में कंप्यूटराइजेशन होगा, ये होगा, सारी चीजें उन्होंने की। जब आपने मानक तय कर दिया, कोई मदरसा अगर आपका मानक पूरा करता है, आपका पैरामीटर पूरा करता है, आपकी जो फॉर्मेलिटीज पूरा करता है, सारे रूल्स रेगुलेशन पूरा करता है, तो आपको उसके बारे में उल्टा सीधा बोलने का अधिकार नहीं है। क्योंकि आप एजुकेशन के ऊपर बोल रहे, बच्चों की एजुकेशन। अरे आप चुप रहिए, किसको बुलाते हो आप? ये बीजेपी के प्रवक्ता को जब
एक करके प्लीज
मत बुलाया करो, इनको कुछ नहीं पता है, ये खाली इनको बोलना है।
ओके, नो प्राइवेट अटैक्स प्लीज, नो पर्सनल अटैक्स प्लीज। बोलिए ना, आप कह रहे हैं मानक तय कर दें तो आप उन मानकों को इम्प्रूव करें, हटाएं ना।
नहीं, मानक तय है। उत्तर प्रदेश की बात करें, उनको उत्तर प्रदेश में उनको पता ही नहीं कि उत्तर प्रदेश में ऑलरेडी मानक तय है। जब मानक तय, इसी तरह से देश में भी आप मानक तय कर दीजिए, और जो आप इम्प्रूवमेंट या मॉडर्नाइजेशन करना चाहते हैं करके उनको उनका मदरसे में जाना क्या जरूरत बात है? मदरसा स्कूल होता है।
तो अगर मानक तय हो ही गए हैं, तो लेट मी आस्क यू अ काउंटर क्वेश्चन। अगर मानक तय हो ही गए हैं कि कंप्यूटर इंक्लूड करने हैं और मॉडर्न एजुकेशन इंक्लूड करनी है, तो फिर नॉर्मल स्कूल में और मदरसे में फर्क बचता ही क्या है? तो स्कूल ही चले जाइए ना।
नहीं तो इससे शिशु मंदिर में फिर फर्क का बचता ही क्या है?
तो रिलीजियस टीचिंग आप घर पे कीजिए। चलिए बताइए संजू वर्मा, व्हाई चूज शिशु मंदिर ओवर मदरसा?
Okay, I'm very glad Anurag Bhadoria pointed this. Vidya Bharati schools are affiliated to CBSE. There are more than 40,000 Vidya
Bharati. ना किसने आपको रोका है?
Teaching almost 3.5 million children, out of which 55% are poor tribal young girls. आपके मदरसाओं में क्या छोटी बच्चियां पढ़ती हैं? नहीं। आप वहाँ पर साइंस पढ़ाते हैं, मैथ पढ़ाते हैं? नहीं। Under Article 30, Muslims have been given the right to administer their own educational institution. After you have already got rights, special rights under Article 30, why do you now want to have special privileges under this madrasa program, where you want the state governments to fund these madrasas? There were 1,500 madrasas in Assam, out of which 614 were being funded by the Assamese taxpayers. Why should
answer the question in Uttar Pradesh, when standards have been set for madrasas, then why say we want to do away with them? Just say we will improve standards.
उनके पास जवाब नहीं है।
I want to say one thing. When there is the need for a surgery, why should I apply Band-Aid? We all know, if you look at West Bengal, Murshidabad, North 24 Parganas, South 24 Parganas, Birbhum have the highest number of madrasas, highest number of crimes. Now look at
okay, why should you put a Band-Aid? Why should you put a Band-Aid, Tausifur Rahman, where you need a surgery? There is a problem, just a second, there is a problem with the very nature of a religious seminary. Now, even though Anurag Bhadoria said that the BJP RSS is obsessed and they cannot have any conversation without mentioning madrasas, let me actually quote to you from a report by the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, Government of United States. They were looking at America's strategy post 9/11, and what did they say? We will begin with the 9/11 Commission, whose report cautioned us of generational struggle. The 9/11 Commission had some specific advice with regard to Pakistan, stressing that their madrasas have been used as incubators of violent extremism, and went on to say that despite some of these madrasas being regulated, they continued to flout norms and continued to incubate and shelter anti-American and terror elements. The problem is the nature of a religious seminary that gives itself to radicalization. Tausifur Rahman.
Fine, Padmaja, I have heard you and I have heard Sanju Verma ji as well, and I would like to elaborate little bit. FYI, first of all, एक तो 2014 के बाद से सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट की स्टैटिस्टिक को हम मानने वाले हैं नहीं, बिल्कुल यकीन नहीं होता कि जो भी स्टैटिस्टिक देते हैं, चाहे वो एलपीजी गैस हो, चाहे वो मदरसा हो। अब बात आ रही है कि मदरसा में मैथ्स नहीं है, मदरसा में साइंस नहीं है। मैम मत करिए, मैं आपसे ज्यादा चिल्ला सकता हूँ प्लीज। ये कॉमेडी शो नहीं चल रहा है, ये कॉमेडी शो नहीं चल रहा है।
वन बाय वन प्लीज, वन बाय वन।
मदरसा में साइंस नहीं है, मैथ्स नहीं है, बायो नहीं है, मैं समझ सकता हूं नहीं है, मगर पद्मजा लेट मी टेल यू समथिंग, मदरसा में अकॉर्डिंग टू बीजेपी वहां पे सिर्फ जिहाद नहीं सिखाया जाता है, और अल्लाह का बहुत बड़ा एहसान है कि वहां पर ये सब सिखाया भी नहीं जाता है। मदरसा में उर्दू लैंग्वेज भी सिखाया जाता है, फारसी भी सिखाया जाता है, जहां पे मदरसा में क्लास 1 से लेकर 10 तक बच्चे उर्दू और फारसी पढ़ते हैं, और उसके बाद बड़े बड़े यूनिवर्सिटी में उनका दाखिला होता है।
दैट इज फाइन, उर्दू और फारसी तो आप रेगुलर स्कूल में भी पढ़ सकते हैं ना सर। व्हाट इज द वेरी बेसिक थिंग that differentiates a madrasa from a regular school? An Urdu medium school will teach you Urdu.
Ma'am, will you force me to leave madrasa? We want madrasa.
But for what? What is the defining characteristic of a madrasa that makes it desirable to you?
I am not concerned about what is happening in Pakistan. I am not concerned what is happening in Pakistan's madrasa.
Sir, it is happening in India's madrasas. From Uttar Pradesh to your state West Bengal, I can quote to you. I can quote to you a number of examples of where again JMB elements have been found. Should I quote to you? Okay, let me start quoting to you now. JNK officials, April 11, 2022. Faced with people in Kashmir increasingly refusing to give them refuge, terrorists are going back to taking shelter in mosques and madrasas. This has become a very potent concern in post-370 Kashmir. Now let me quote...
Give me a prominent case.
Okay.
Padmaja.
All right, let me quote to you a prominent case. Let me give you a prominent case.
Agreed on your statement.
Now again, 2021, a research analyst says that Afghan madrasas have become a recruiting ground and a breeding ground for religious extremists, which is a danger to Afghanistan, Pakistan and the entire region. Now let me quote to you an example from West Bengal, March 16, 2022, your state, let me quote to you. The West Bengal Police's Special Task Force arrested a madrasa teacher from Howrah for connection with Islamic fundamentalist organization Jamaatul Mujahideen, Bangladesh. The madrasa teacher Aniruddin Ansari was arrested following allegations that he gave refuge to 2 JMB terrorists at his residence. These are cases, sir, and I can quote to you so many more from Denmark to Uttar Pradesh to Afghanistan to Pakistan to West Bengal. The list goes on.
Students are getting arrested from ashrams also. Students, the babas are getting arrested from their ashrams. So you want to say
that babas are not studying in ashrams.
No,
criminals can be anywhere. But the point is that the child has an option.
Exactly. Criminals can be found anywhere in any
But
religion.
criminals are not being trained in ashrams.
Particular association
Padmaja, I've heard everyone peacefully.
No. Who said?
Okay, Sayyid Aslam Pasha, I really apologize because your link was really bad. We could not come across to you. 30 seconds, please. Your last word, because we could not get through to you earlier.
Padmaja,
yes.
let me tell you, we are living in the biggest functional democracy of the world. We have the freedom to propagate, profess and practice our religion. Now, having said that, I think Hemanta Biswa Sarma is ill-informed. He needs to read history. The first education minister of India, Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, has studied in madrasa. Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, who is the biggest educationist of India, is a madrasa educated student. He is the one. These are the 2 pioneers.
Sir, but that is, nobody is taking anything away from that. But this is the year 2022, when children have access and option of a much more modern education. That time, our education minister was from a madrasa. Perhaps he did not have access to any better. Our infrastructure wasn't as good. Now when they do, why shouldn't they be treated at par? There seems to be a dichotomy there where you say everyone should be treated at par, and then you say that no, we will choose a differential way of educating Muslim children. Does that add up? I'm going to leave it to you. Thanks very much, gentlemen. Sanju Verma for joining us. Apologies again, Syed Aslam. We could not give you enough time. Thank you.
News Hour at 10. We'll be right back after the break. Times now. Action begins here.
For the last 2 years, the world has been relentlessly fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. As the countries across the globe prioritize vaccinations to keep the next wave of COVID at bay, India also rolled out precautionary jabs this year to achieve herd immunity against the virus. While COVID has not risen substantially in India in the last few months, the pandemic has not yet faded. India has remained on guard, but vaccination among children remains low and is significantly less talked about.
Immunizing the kids will not only check the spread of the asymptomatic infections, who can act as silent hosts for the virus, and which will lead to again spread in the society, but again it can also mitigate the severity, the intensity of the infection in children.
The News Hour at 10. We'll be right back after the break. Times now. Action begins here. Times now. Action begins here.
क्या पूछूं आपसे कि आपका जो स्टे था कांग्रेस पार्टी में, ये शॉर्ट एंड स्वीट था कि हॉट एंड सावर था?
जब जब राजनीति में कोई फैसले होते हैं मैडम जी, तब एक बात बहुत तय होती है कि लोगों के हित के लिए, जनता की सेवा के लिए ये फैसला होना चाहिए, और उसी को देखते हुए ये फैसला लिया गया था। लेकिन जहां गए, जिस कांग्रेस पार्टी पर भरोसा किया, उनके नेताओं पर जो भरोसा किया, उससे एक बात तो तय हो गई थी कि ना ये जन सेवा करना चाहते हो, ना कोई करता है उसको रोकने का काम करते हैं। जो जन सेवा करना चाहता है उसको रोक दो, हम नहीं करना चाहते तो हमारे